brand new buddy. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fight Night Rising, the EU edition, Week 3. I am Boopasaurus here with the revelation, the sensation, the exquisite Excoundrel. How's it going, man?
Do you know what? You've been getting better at these every week. I feel like it's going from strength to strength in the way that we introduced me to the stream. Thank you so much, Boop. Doing well. Bit of a headache, but do you know what? The best cure, some good TFT.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're dressed for the occasion as well. You know, I like
Yeah,
the
you know.
thematic dress as well. I might throw something thematic on after halftime just to so I don't get y- judged
Your your
incessantly
your your
after
your your
what I
background
do.
your background's thematic, don't worry. Your background is
There it is. There,
thematic,
at
right?
least we got a little bit of it. But before we get to all of the wonderful meta discussion, let's talk about what we're here for. So we are here at Fight Night Rising. This is where a lot of the up and coming TF players are going to really show up and show themselves right now. Actually, our winner from last week, Fluffy, currently competing in Twitch Rivals in Lobby 1 for TFT.
Yeah.
So we like to have that kind of representation. But first, let's talk about who is going to be competing today. In the lobby, we have got a couple returning players. We've got Nomi, who is on his third week. This is, kind of where the third week curse comes into play. So we're definitely going to be seeing that. We got Guillosko, enclasee, another returning member. kriszTKO, 91, GuttaManero, Vala, and VallabhTFT is going to be our lobby for today. Any names kind of jumping at you there, Excoundrel?
Gonna be completely honest, no. It's definitely a lot of fresh faces, but the way that I like to see that is that there's a lot of players that are up and coming in the European TFT scene, and this is the chance for them to prove themselves. So I'm very excited to see how these guys do, and hopefully we can start to establish some new names in European TFT.
Well, not just bragging rights, but these players are also competing for a little bit of a prize pool. We got a couple $100 for number one. The top four finish in the money, and they all get to tell their parents that they made money off of video games, which is really the ultimate goal for all of us in the end.
Oh, absolutely.
And as well, we have to thank our sponsor, Juke.gg. It is where esports lives. If you want to know where any of these players are streaming individually, you can find us, giantslayer, on Juke.gg and know where everyone is streaming. Know when the next Mort Dog top four is going to be a little bit later this week. Know where all TFT is going to live, not just TFT, but all esports in general. A wonderful sponsor. Thank you, Juke.gg. So the revelation, Excoundrel here, I think what we all want to talk about is we're 2 weeks into a new meta. Jarvan has just been hot fixed, Dark Stars, and our mages are very popular, but some people are starting to complain once more. How are you feeling about everything going on in the meta per TFT the last couple weeks?
It's a difficult thing to assess because the meta, again, I still don't think is particularly healthy, but it's kind of because it's being dominated by singular units or traits, and those traits are generally being put to the forefront because of those units. Like Jarvan, despite the hotfix, is still too strong. 20 mana on his second cast. They basically made it so that he needed 20 more mana on his second cast. But honestly, the first cast is the most important, plus all the extra stat buffs that he had and the ridiculous amount of attack speed that Jarvan gives. Like having a Jarvan 1 is often better than having Chrono altogether in a lot of compositions, right? So it's just that unit is really dominating the fact that it's making protectors too strong, it's making Dark Stars too easily accessible, and Jhin is in a really insane spot. And I don't know if you've seen recently, one of the builds that has been popping up over the last week is Ashe with Shojins and Runans, which is just being slotted into a Jhin, Jarvan, Darkstar composition, and actually it's pretty filthy. So I do think that realistically, the meta is going to need a shift to get back into a healthy spot, but that probably won't happen until the next patch. So I'm expecting a lot more Jarvan, protectors, Darkstar, snipers, that kind of thing today.
Well, I think what this does is kind of question a little bit about if stronger units is good for the game in general. Because I feel like when we've had moderately unhealthy metas, thinking all the way back to Kazakhstan back in the day, it seems to be when those individual units seem to be anchoring too many compositions. Old school
Sure.
Draven, old school, very strong carries. I think we're kind of in that same position here, but the difference with Jarvan is that he's kind of a utility kind of carry, right? Like you said, why choose Chrono when you can put a Rabadon's and a Jarvan and have twice the amount of attack speed and have your Xayah and your Shredder literally clipping because it cannot attack quick enough in terms of animation on the field. So So in terms of that kind of statement, what do you feel? Do we want to put more power into these synergies, or do we want to take power away from Jarvan and other strong units and put them in some of the weaker units instead?
I think the better play, and I think the healthier play for any auto battler is synergies. I feel like if you make individual units too powerful, that dictates the meta more so than making synergies stronger. Because the problem with making Jarvan too powerful is that actually protectors as an actual and I like protectors as an actual synergy. I don't feel like over the top overpowered, but because the individual units in protectors are really good, like Rakan and Jarvan are in really good spots right now. It just makes sense to play them as you know as a frontline. So yeah, I think the idea for me would be take some power away from individual units and redistribute it to synergies, you know, overall. But that's something that again would need a lot of work, and it's more trial and error. And the problem is with TFT right now is that we've had a lot of trial and error and it hasn't always gone right. So you know, I'm hoping that in the next few patches we're going to start to see that trial and error pay off, and maybe we get some more healthy balance in 3.5.
Yeah, and when we've had healthy balance, I feel like we all appreciate it quite a bit, right? There's been moments in TFT where we're all just all in on it. We're feeling really great. It's just I think some of the choices on where to power budget some of these characters recently, you know, I think we can question just a little bit. But now we're looking at kriszTKO, like the name, it's the same as mine, spelled a little differently. We're gonna start off on a regular galaxy. The one on your hoodie, Excoundrel, is the one that we're gonna be living on
Yes.
right now. Starting same kind of things, Rebel. Something I've actually started seeing on ladder weirdly a lot since last week is Battlecast. So I'm wondering, I actually got promoted with Battlecast earlier in the week. So we'll see if that's going to ring true as we got a lobby win from Battlecast. It was a weaker lobby in terms of power, but we'll see if we're going to see that again. But some good items for Chris. We got the Sparring Glove. We got the tier that could build into something really nice a little bit later. But like you said, we're probably going to be seeing Darkstar. We're probably going to be seeing a lot of mages. But that goes to my next question, which is it time to kind of counter per lobby? I mean, is it a good idea to maybe invest in some mystics here earlier on and then transition to vanguards if you need it? If you're looking at some snipers later to kind of, if you're assuming that you're going to be seeing a lot of mages here in this lobby.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think like you can always make individual adjustments, you know, as per lobby. I do feel like you very rarely get more than 2 sorcerer players in the lobby, mainly because like to play sorcerers right now and to play them effectively, you need to have a blue buff, and sometimes that makes tiers way too contested. Like you really can't play Syndra and expect to top 4 consistently without having a blue buff. So the other sorcerer variations just aren't strong enough right now compared to the Star Guardian variation, and that requires some very specific itemization. The build that I'm expecting to potentially see a little bit of is Vanguard Mystic. Mainly because I've seen it creep up in the ladder as a way to be consistent in protector-dominated lobbies. And obviously Cassiopeia has the added benefit of reducing further shields that are applied once she applies her poison by 50%. The only issue with Vanguard Mystic, and it's been the issue with Vanguard Mystic for quite some time, is if you don't get really good offensive Jace items, you don't hit 3-star Jace and you don't hit 3-star Cassiopeia, you don't have the legs to get you to top 3, top 2. But you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of Vanguard Mystic because it has been something that's been popping up. Look at this though, from YouBetterKnowMe. This is something that I saw Jinx JK talking about, who's a pretty prominent North American player. Essentially open forting. You basically open fort from 2-1 and get carousel priority, and something that a lot of pros have been doing to really kind of hammer home how important carousel priority is open forting early on. You just lose the first 3 rounds, buy the minimal amount of units and hit gold breakpoints, and then you go for carousel priority on the first carousel, because that first item can make the difference between getting the comp right or not.
Yeah, he actually, I think, so I've been watching Jinx stream for a while. He's probably one of the first TFT players that I ever fully like kind of latched onto as a fan. And he did a whole day of open forting. And I just couldn't imagine the self-control that would take. Like for me, it just seems so counterintuitive to do something like open forting. And so because this is a little bit of a newer thing, we did kind of talk about what the point is. It is for that carousel. What is kind of like the risk that you're taking when it comes to open forwarding, that you're kind of just going to whiff on an item on the first carousel because you're going to be losing a lot of HP?
I'm not I mean, I wouldn't expect you to whiff on an item so when you're open forting, because usually the only thing that can go wrong is either a troll carousel or a full item carousel. That would be the worst case scenario. In fact, there was some really good discussion on Fluffy's stream about how they should implement changes to carousels. Like, I think Fluffy said, look, if they could just put a marker above the carousel on the top bar to say this is going to be like a special carousel, you can plan accordingly, right? Which I quite like. You know, I think that's a really, really, really intuitive and good idea. But yeah, like most of the time, like 95% of the cases, you're not going to get punished for open 14 to the first carousel. But if you open 14 to the first carousel and getting a troll carousel is always a worry. Open 14 to the first carousel and the other person picks up the one item that you need because you just get poor positioning on the carousel is a worry. And the other worry is that when you come out of the carousel, you do need to start to stabilize pretty quickly. And sometimes the rolls that you get could be a bit lackluster. It is okay to lose until the Terror Busters when you're open 14, but after that, you really need to invest some resources in keeping your board in a stronger state.
And in terms of resources, when it comes to economy and money, are you just saving as much as possible? Are you not spending any money until maybe Terror Busters? What is the kind of ultimate strategy there?
Yes, you're not spending any money until Terror Busters. If you're playing open 4, like you can't spend any money until Terror Busters. Just because there's no point. Like you don't. The only thing that I would maybe consider doing is if I had enough gold past the like a certain break point, I might consider putting gold into leveling just to put another unit on the board and try and preserve some HP. But otherwise, I don't spend. If I'm open 14, I don't spend, because the whole point of open 14 is to generate a good loss streak, and you don't really want to break that before you hit Terror Busters, because if you get a 5 loss streak by Terror Busters and then you go into Terror Busters, it's a free 3 gold, and that's actually a significant amount of gold that you don't want to lose, because it might allow you to hit further breakpoints, which allows you to stabilize more quickly.
Yeah, and so those of you guys at home who are thinking about trying this strategy, remember that even though you might be able to get a tier 2 unit, you might not want to buy it, especially until Terror Busters, because you want that economy, you want the option and the flexibility to stabilize your way, because of I believe when Skara originated open forting way back in the day, it was mostly for a way to counter your lobby as well, to where you don't make any decisions until the Terror Burster comes, and then you can scout the lobby out and then figure out how to go from there. Is it a little different now?
So the way open 14 used to work is actually something that came over from the original auto chess genres.
Okay.
Essentially what you did is you would intentionally lose to build an economy. Like, your number one priority when open 14 would be hitting 50 gold as quickly as possible. So I came from traditional auto chess, and the open 14 strategy, which basically has similar mechanics. The open 14 strategy that you would use in traditional auto chess would allow you to get to 50 gold 10 rounds into the game. So after the 10th round, which was actually the first PvE round after the opening 3, that would allow you to be 50 gold by there or thereabouts, and that would be such a strong lead on economy to have over your opponents. It would allow you to level more quickly, then hit certain units that you wanted, etc., etc. In TFT, before they made the economy changes in set 3, it was a very similar premise. You would open fort primarily to generate an economy, and as you said, a secondary reason to be very non-committal in terms of both items and also compositions, and that allowed you to then be a bit more free with your decision making when it came to the Terror Busters. But now it's much more for carousel priority. Obviously, economy being important also, but yeah, it's much more for carousel priority realistically when it comes to this open 14 in this particular meta anyway.
Cool. All right. Well, enclase, another returning member from last week, also on the 3rd week. So I don't know if you know this, Excoundrel, but almost everyone gets eliminated on their 3rd week back on any Fight Night Rising, unless you are Gunmay, who was here for 13 weeks. Instead, a little bit of an outlier when it comes to those statistics. But yeah, the 3rd week has been kind of like a kryptonite for a lot of our players. So that's going to be Nomi and enclase that we're looking at for that. And looking at Nomi at 78 HP, that's going to be exactly what we're expecting based on the strategy he is going for. And enclase gonna take a loss here. He's sitting at 12 gold, deciding to invest in a couple units, has the Bard picked up, has a couple snipers, might be able to transition into Vanguards, into something else a little while later. What is your kind of take on this, especially with Vanguard Sniper, something you don't really see that often outside of the early game?
He's got well, this is difficult to say because he's got Bard in there. Like, I think there is the option for him to think about Vanguard. No, okay, he's going Vanguard snipers. The Jarvan and the Shaco here, the selling of the Bard. I was thinking maybe there was a part of his like the part of his thinking was maybe going for Vanguard Mystic, but he doesn't really have it. Doesn't have a blue buff. That's another build that does require blue buff. And he's keeping the Shaco and the Java, and he's sold to 20 gold here. So I'm assuming he's going to use the Vanguard frontline to transition into a traditional Dark Star sniper comp. Wondering whether he's going to be playing a Ashe Shojin build, especially with the pickup of that tier, because that could actually be something that we've seen quite a lot of on ladder recently, and it's something that has become more and more popular. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a potential Shojin Ashe with a Runan's Hurricane for enclases.
And actually a little bit, so if you're really being nitpicky, a little bit of a misplay there, as sometimes you want to wait until after your NPC round in case you do get a gold orb like that, as he did sell units that he ended up not actually having to need to sell. So he ends up with 5 over that interest. So it's just one of those small things. If you're trying to min-max, it's like buying out your pack if you're looking for a specific unit before you re-roll. Just those small things can be the difference, right, in holding on to the possibility of a Vanguard transition a little bit later versus now he's got to be a little bit more committed. As we got, I'm just going to call him 91 because I just don't want to butcher the name. Who's sitting in first place, 100 HP. Brawler Protectors, Battlecast as well. So Brawler's still doing all right here. What is the kind of difference between our old Brawler Blaster setups versus the Dark Stars that we're seeing now? Who wins that kind of arm wrestle?
Dark Stars win. I mean, Brawler Blaster just isn't in a good spot at all right now. Jinx isn't strong enough. Brawlers are a really terrible frontline because Giant Slayer is fairly popular. Like that one item really counters your Brawler frontline in like as a whole. And also the individual Brawler units are all just bad for the most part. Apart from Blitzcrank and actually no, to be fair, like they aren't great, especially early game. Like Ilaoi and Malphite really just don't do anything. And compared to some of the Vanguards and some of the Protectors, which are much more powerful early game with the CC they provide or just the flat damage they do, you just don't have a very good early Brawler frontline that you can default to. You really have to get a Blitzcrank early on to make it super good, and it's just probably the worst frontline out of the 3 options that you've got available right now. And plus, they don't transition into many builds. Like they really only transition into Brawler Blaster, which is just, that's like a C tier, maybe at best if you get great items for Jinx, a B tier build right now. It can top 4, but you're going to lose out to the Jins, you're going to lose out to the Shacos. And with the Infiltrator meta being pretty popular, Jinx is also not in a great spot because you also can't go 3 offensive item Jinx anymore. You have to think about your defensive itemization on Jinx, and that does limit her power a little bit compared to previously.
Yeah, and that almost seemed like the point almost of that last patch was Jinx was so strong and so safe in the backline. They just buffed everyone else up to kind of compete against her with the Irelia, with even some of the snipers now. And we're actually going to be seeing a couple Vanguards here, 2 blue buffs for Nomi. Man, this could not have gone better item-wise for Nomi at this point.
That is why you go for the carousel priority, and that's why he went for the open forting strategy. Now, I'm going to be very interested to see where he goes with this. It looks like it will be a Vanguard Mystic play. I'm trying to figure out where that second blue buff comes into play with Vanguard Mystics. Now, it could be the case because we don't actually have that many Sorcerer players. We noticed it last week. There really weren't that many Sorcerer players on a lobby-by-lobby basis. Especially if you don't have a blue buff. You can't really, like I said, you can't really play Sorcerers right now without having a blue buff. He might actually, instead of going 4 Mystics, he might play Teemo plus another Sniper, for instance, maybe the Ashe. And he might go like 2 Snipers, 2 Mystics, 4 Vanguards. And I could see that being the case. So, I'm kind of interested to see what he does with that double blue buff. But he's actually in a pretty strong spot as it stands.
Actually, you bring up, I think, a really interesting point when it comes to snipers and Vanguard Mystics, since there's no one who actually has that crossover with the snipers, but the Vanguard and Mystics give everyone their traits. You're kind of just giving a little bit of beef to your snipers to get, 3 or 4 extra auto attacks off to be a little bit more defensive. Is there a world where you kind of build around snipers in that way, where you get like just a beefy front line with your Mystics and your Vanguards and have someone like an Ashe and a Jhin in the back line to try to bring you the victories? That's something I've definitely seen it on ladder a couple times, so it hasn't been as
Vanguard Snipers was like a very popular build maybe sort of 3 months ago. Like
Yeah.
generally snipers were always paired with some kind of front line, right? In fact, yeah, Vanguard snipers was actually pretty popular. You'd see it run in a similar way that it was now, but obviously you'd have the Mordekaiser, the Karma, and the Jin. You'd basically run 3 Darkstar because it used to be that 3 Darkstars
Yeah.
was the threshold. So you'd run 3 Darkstar. And yeah, basically Vanguard snipers actually used to be a very popular build, but it just wasn't very strong. Like it was a good top 4 build, but it would never really be like an insane build to get you to a top 1 or top 2. So I mean, I think splashing snipers in Vanguard Mystic might be maybe one of the remedies to deal with the fact that you drop off in damage pretty significantly with the Cassiopeia, especially if you don't hit the 3-star Jace. So I'm excited to see what Nomi can do with this. He's running the Jin, as you can see. If you run the Mordekaiser, you can run essentially 2 Darkstars with the Karma if you want to, or two Darkstars with the Mordekaiser. Obviously still in a bit of a power trough right now. He has also rolled his entire gold to 0, and he hasn't really hit many major upgrades. So maybe a little worried about Nomi's current position, just based on his economy and the units that he's got.
Like you said, though, when you open fort, you got to stabilize at some point or else you're going to hemorrhage those life points. And we're already below 50 here before I think the infiltrator round for Nomi. Maybe that 3-week curse is going to be striking, at least in lobby 1. But if we also remember on our first week of knowing Nomi, he got last in the lobby and then ended up winning all of Fight Night. So it's not over until the fat Mordekaiser sings, my friends. But like the thing that I definitely want to talk about too when it comes to Nomi is he's definitely shown growth over the last 3 weeks in terms of confidence, in terms of how he approaches the game, and I just got to give him some props on being able to do that. But now, like you said, he's rolled down. He doesn't even have the strongest Teemo on the board right now as he's going Astro Sniper is the direction he's going, and the Teemo might be able to bring him out of this rut. The Jin is pretty good, but these Vanguards are taking a lot of a damage. That Leona just a little bit too strong to start with that Teemo was pretty close, but you better know me also going to lose out another round. It seems like he's close to stabilize. He needs to upgrade that Teemo ASAP though.
He needs to upgrade a lot of units actually. The Wukong, the Jin, the Karma is on his bench there. Plenty of options for him, but obviously he still needs a little bit more help to get over the line in terms of getting that build to stabilize. He's also caught between committing to Vanguard Mystics and committing to Astro Snipers. And like you said, like there's no 2-star Teemo on the horizon for him. The double blue buff was an interesting choice, that's for certain. I can't think of a build where double blue buff would make sense in a lot of scenarios, especially because Teemo without Astro, blue buff isn't that good, right? So like I'm just wondering why the double blue buff was the choice for him. But I think it's something that can work out, especially if you're trying to play like the Teemo in a Cassiopeia Vanguard Mystic build. But he's just not in a great spot at this current point in time.
All right. So, Celestial Protectors now for our GuttaManero. He was pretty excited about those items. I mean, those are pretty good items on the bench. You can get an IE. I don't know, the Giant Slayers against the Vanguards, maybe. There are a couple Vanguard players in this lobby right now, so you might want to get a Last Whisper, which is exactly what he's going to put on that Jin. GA on the Shaco. Classic Darkstar Sniper. Got a little smattering of everything. And a little bit of magic resist as well. And something, unit that you've always liked, that Karma, helping out that Jin too. And it's also something that I think you just kind of called before everyone, is Karma is a super undervalued unit. And when a GuttaManero gets a little bit stronger, that Karma will just kind of get you a win more type of situation with that attack speed, but needs to find damage somewhere else as that front line did melt a little bit.
Yeah, Karma is an incredibly strong unit right now, and that's probably one of the other reasons that Darkstar is in such a good space. I mean, there's a reason that our meta has ended up this way, and that reason is specifically that a lot of the Darkstar units just got randomly buffed in the last patch. So obviously Darkstar, without even touching the trait, obviously Darkstar was going to be in a pretty good spot. So, yeah, I think I just saw enclasee as well. We just had a brief look at enclasee. He had the Shojin's Ginsu's Ash, which is like super strong. Like loads of high elo TFT players in Europe, especially, are playing this particular version of the Darkstar build, but where they're actually prioritizing items on Ash over Jin, because Jin's base damage is just really good regardless. And they're just saying, well, let's just have the perma CC of like Ash just constantly spamming arrows over and over again. So you might see more people invest a bit more into the Ash over the course of this tournament, because it's something that's popped up in the last week in terms of TFT meta, and has only just kind of broken into the meta, and it's one of the few small shifts that we've seen over the course of this patch.
Yeah, I actually crazy. Speaking of Ash, some guy won a lobby with me at 64 HP, running like a protector sniper comp with Ash being the protector. So just like a little bit of extra shielding every time she ulted, and it ended up winning the round a couple times. As you know, once he gets down to like the 1v2 with the Ash, they get close, she ults, the shield comes through. So I don't know, maybe it's just more of a story of protectors being really strong and that trait just being valuable on literally anybody when it comes to value. Definitely more so than most, but
it's weird though because they haven't really changed protectors. Like they haven't really touched protectors in a long time. One of the things that I would say is that they gave a lot of max health buffs to current protector units. I wouldn't actually say the protector trait itself is ridiculously strong. What I would say is that I just think the protector units are in a good place right now. So Rakan, especially like we said, and Jarvan, especially like we said, are two really strong protector units right now. But I think Nico got some max health buffs as well fairly recently. So they've just been buffing the protectors who all value HP. Like they all value HP. So by buffing max HP, you're actually buffing like indirectly the protector trait because all of those guys are going to get bigger shields due to the fact that they have a higher max HP. So I wouldn't actually say like protector spat is broken. And I wouldn't say the protector trait is broken. I would just say the individual units that we currently have using the protector trait are in a good spot right now. I don't even think Nico's that strong. It's really just Jarvan and Rakan to me that are like the two super strong protectors right now, especially since they gave Rakan increased knock-up time based on his level, which is just absolutely insane. So yeah, I think I wouldn't say I wouldn't be too quick to rush to nerf protectors. But I would be looking at potentially toning down Rakan and toning down Jarvan when we get to the next update.
Oh, just quick question, because I've never actually seen it. If Vayne tumbles, does that proc the protector trait?
I don't think so. I think it's when she ults.
That'd be
I think it's when she does.
Nuts.
I haven't tried it though. I haven't tried it though, but yeah, I don't think so. Especially if you were somehow working in like protectors with cybernetics, because they just get big max health bonuses. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's when she does her first ult, because I don't believe that when she does her tumble that it counts as an ability cast. I think that just is part of her original ability.
Okay, like an auto attack. And something else that I actually want to point out when it came to this Jhin and Ashe is Jhin sometimes struggles with the fact that he has a set attack speed. And when you've got that Ashe arrow giving you some time that YouBetterKnowMe has run out of with an 8th place, you're going to give your Jhin a couple extra auto attacks. And sometimes that's the difference between your first 2 shots hitting and not your last 2 shots hitting. But you really, really want to get that 4th crit going, as Vala now sitting at 62 HP, running Darkstar. Got a little bit of a smattering of defensive traits there with Mystic, also some Celestial, some snipers, a little bit of everything here. And I think that's also something that we've becoming to see a little bit more common, is we're seeing a little bit more of these kind of anchor traits like Darkstar, and then a smattering of your Vanguard Mystics. It kind of seems like this is what, in my opinion, they kind of wanted for this set, but we're going to see which Darkstar comp is going to be better here. We've got snipers versus just your good old 4-piece Darkstar. We've got that Leona and the Onyx Spark with that Warmogs trying to get that health back up, getting a lot of that damage in from that Jhin. Nice tanking there from that Leona, but now that front line is going to be taken down. It's going to be a little bit closer, but it looks like Vala is going to be able to take this in at the end. Good items on that Xayah as well.
I think he's obviously wanting to drop the Xayah for Jhin once he finds Jhin. He'll probably drop the Mordekaiser, add the Jhin, transfer the last whisper IE over to the Jhin at this point. But yeah, he's not going to be running the Xayah for the rest of the game. He just hasn't. I think because there are, again, so many people playing the same build right now, he's not actually managed to run into the Jhin. And also, I wanted to briefly touch on, you just saw the effect of Nomi. Very interestingly, he obviously was very worried for his HP total. He decided to do a level 6 roll down after open forting. I don't know many builds where I fully agree with the level 6 roll down right now. I'm guessing Vanguard. I think Vanguard Mystics might be one of the few builds where I would say level 6 roll down makes sense. But then he just didn't hit the units that he needed. That's one of the very big issues with open forting. It's a beautiful way to get carousel priority, great way to build a great economy. But if you just don't get blessed with a bit of luck when it comes to doing your roll downs and finding your units, you've got too much of a HP discrepancy to have to make up in such a short period of time. And unfortunately, Nomi wasn't able to there.
Yeah, I mean, open forwarding is like honestly like the definition of feast or famine, right? Like sometimes you open fort and then you just kind of roll into all the units you need. You're feeling good, and then sometimes you get eighth place like a Nomi, and I think that's just the double-edged sword that it can provide you an easy top four or an easy top eight depending on what happens after that terror burster round. As Gio now with some really great items on that Xerath, but the Xerath can't really do much if it's CC'd, and unfortunately was CC'd almost the entire round as we get another elimination, but very different from last week. Our HP total is actually pretty high comparatively towards some of our other players. 2 eliminations with our 6th place being a 30 HP, 63 at the top at enclase, so this is still pretty tight. Anything can still happen.
Yeah, these Xerath items that he had in particular, like I completely agree with you in the sense that I don't really like to play Xerath without Quicksilver, because if you get interrupted during his ultimate, like you're just basically culling the entire reason that you want a Xerath in your team.
Yep.
Ginsu's is nice. Shojin's is a terrible item on Xerath. Never built. Well, don't say never, but you shouldn't be looking to build Shojin's on Xerath, because his first ultimate is usually the one that counts, and it doesn't really matter about getting to the second, because if you haven't obliterated the enemy team in your first ultimate, more likely than not in this current meta, you're going to die. So, yeah, I think Xerath is like a good unit, but you need him 2-star. You need Ginsu's on him as an absolute minimum. And you're seeing here the problem with Jinx. Oh no, you're not seeing the problem with Jinx. Jinx actually wins.
Actually you do. Even though she won, that was definitely way harder than it would have been a week and a half ago. You know what I mean? That was way closer.
Yeah, I mean, he has got really good items on the Jinx, to be fair. So what I would say that he has got the last whisper, i.e. Deathblade combo, which is very strong. The only thing you have to be worried about if you're running that combo in particular is if someone positions their Shaco in like a more aggressive spot and tries to get on your Jinx directly, even a 2-star Shaco will end up taking out your Jinx. So you have to be a little careful about the Jinx positioning. But I think he's got an Ergot and an Aurelion Soul on his board. So the Aurelion Soul obviously giving him the Rebel buff. And Aurelion Soul actually still a really good unit. And the nice little last-minute swap here, that Shaco probably would have killed his Jinx. He might actually be in a good spot again to get another win here.
That's always something when it comes to some of these players, just like the inherent, like, I don't know what to call it, but just that feeling they get on the inside that's just like, I'm going to switch, right? And then just getting it right on that next go around, because I think you're right. If that Jinx stays in the corner there, this is a different result for kriszTKO, but he's going to be able to get a little bit more money by staying on fire. We still have 6 members remaining, but right now this lobby is a little bit of, or a lot of bit of Dark Stars here. We got a couple Teemos and a little bit of smatterings of little itty bitty pieces coming together, with Mystics and Vanguard showing up on a lot of all our other traits. And now we're here on the completed item carousel. We do get a protector spat item for Vala. I wonder where that's going to go in at the end. Like you said, a lot of units can use that protector trait very well, as GuttaManero doing a little bit of scouting for himself. Has a good backline. That Shaco Karma is going to be something it's pretty much bread and butter, peanut butter and jelly when it comes to those 2 units. You can have the Karma go on Jhin if you want a little bit of extra attack speed, but it's a little bit of a win more situation sometimes if you're still running that Jarvan, which GuttaManero is not. So what are you thinking here? How's he doing? 19 at the brink of elimination, maybe has 2 losses in him. Still a tier 1 Jhin though.
Yeah, my issue here is that, he again, tier 1 Jhin, he's not running the Jarvan, so he hasn't actually got 4 Darkstar. He's running 3 Darkstar, which is kind of hampering some of the ramp up power in this composition. I think this is like I'm hoping for top 4 situation that he's in right now, but I don't think he's particularly strong. This is one of the issues when you're going into this current meta, that like if you do an analysis of the builds in this lobby, I think you'll find that the majority of them are attempting to play Darkstar Sniper because it is just the best variant of the build right now. I think that's one of the benefits of running something like Jinx, right? I think that's Jinx, right? I think one of the benefits is the fact that realistically, no one else is doing Jinx. So, at this current point in time, you can often just hit your 2 stars, which while everybody's scrapping for the Shacos and scrapping for the Jins, you could just dominate the mid game by having a 2-star Jinx and 2-star Gnar and kind of take over from there. But, as this game gets into the later stages when people are able to solidify their Darkstar builds, that's where the Jinx is going to start to fall off. But maybe it's a good strategy coming into this week to say, let's go for something like Brawler Blast, because almost no one really plays Jinx in the current meta. So you're almost guaranteed to get a 2-star Jinx every time you try and play the build. And that would be an interesting way to look at it, because it is something that I think would work out well.
and we don't know when we're ever going to be able to say that you're going to be able to get Jinx pretty much uncontested ever again. So maybe take this week and a half of Jinx not being as strong as before. But I think that kind of brings back to, what we were saying earlier on today is knowing that this Darkstar comp is so popular in a competitive atmosphere when you're not worried about the ladder points, you're going to be, I think, a little bit more free to specifically counter some comps as GuttaManero finds a victory here for himself and is going to stay alive as the rest of the lobby is going to tighten up, because Fluffy did that last week where he was kind of doing that same exact strategy, which is what is no one else doing, and he got second with a quad sniper comp. He won with Battlecast, right? So it's definitely a legitimate strategy, but then you're also potentially kind of like breaking your knees before a marathon, right? Because you can guess wrong and everyone can transition a little bit later.
Sure. I think what you're seeing quite clearly from almost everyone that we've been spectating, though, is that most people are gravitating towards Darkstar with Jhin and Shaco. And so I think it's a pretty safe bet that even if one other person is going Jinx, you're usually able to get 2 Jinx compositions online fairly easily. So I think going Jinx is a pretty safe bet in terms of trying to avoid being contested in the lobbies in the current meta, because most people don't really value her as a strong pick. This guy's we're seeing Vala. Yeah, we're going to see Vala roll down. I guess he's looking for a Jhin 2 in this scenario. He's also picked up a Janna, which I think is a very undervalued unit by a lot of people. But the Fizz 2 is actually a pretty nice pickup, because that's going to allow him to be a bit more aggressive towards the back line of the enemy team. And he's picked up a Shojin, which I think is a pretty solid item for either Rakan or for Fizz, to be honest with you.
It's just a solid item, just in general, on most people not named Xerath, because if Xerath gets a second ultimate, it's already going pretty poorly for you anyway. Here we go. Let's see if the Shakos are going to be able to burst into that back line. The Fizz in the back line is going to get the Ashe. The Chum the Waters isn't going to get a ton of value, but is able to get through that Warmog. Chum the Waters on the Xerath, though, with that Protector Spat, is going to actually get some value out of that shield. He's going to take down Quejicus on the other side, as Vala is going to continue on going here, as we finally do get another elimination. Is going to be Monero going down. Viker is going to be sitting at 1 HP. This is top 5 now. Next elimination will give us our top 4.
Yeah, we're watching enclaze here, and I said enclaze very early on opted into going for the Shojin's Ashe, had a really strong mid game because of it, and now look at his build. He's got a 2-star Echo with Giant Slayer. He's got a 2-star Thresh, a 2-star Urgot there as well. Celestial activated with the Lulu, and Celestial with Jhin, by the way, is incredibly important because Jin's final shot can often 100% HP him from 0, so having Celestial is so important with Jhin. And he's got a great bench for the Thresh as well. Enclaze is in such a good position this game, and I think it's really because he just had that super powerful super powerful mid game, having the Ashe with the Shojins.
And you're actually seeing the Celestial trait come in handy, saving the Ashe there after that arrow comes through and actually gets her 1 extra auto attack and helps with that victory. enclaze is looking, honestly, this lobby hasn't looked super strong, especially since people are splitting units. These top 3 players are definitely going to get much stronger, and enclaze is going to have to worry a little bit more, especially now that the Darkstar units are all back into the pool for our last Darkstar players. So now our Jins are going to hit tier 2, but now we're looking at Viker here for Celestial.
What happened to our Jinx player? Who was playing Jinx?
That's
our Jinx player was Monero?
Oh, it's 208. I can't see the name properly. That
208 1251. Yeah, 208 1251.
So he's starting to fall off now, as you can see, but the HP advantage that he got in the mid game by just running the 2-star Jinx. It's Chris, so it's Chris. It's just with a weird name in game. He got Zephyr though. His Jinx got Zephyr here. This might be a big deal, actually.
All right, and look. Oh, but the Jhin gets pulled into the rest of the team and actually gets taken out of the jaws of death of that Urgot. So that almost went well for Chris, but a little bit too much CC saving our friend Viker in the end, as we do get another elimination as Quejicus goes down. We're down to our top 3, 5 HP, 1 HP, and then there's enclaze at the top. Is that too insurmountable? The rest of our players need to be perfect in order to take enclaze down, but it is looking real good for our friend enclaze on his 3rd week back.
Yeah, absolutely. He's had an incredibly good first game here. Chris, I think, is likely to end up getting 3rd in this scenario. It really depends on who loses harder, I think, out of him and Visor coming into the next round. But, if you're Chris, you're probably pretty happy with the fact that you've ended up getting in a top 3 scenario with Blaster Brawler, knowing just how weak it is compared to the builds that you're seeing on your screen right now, the 2 Darkstar builds that are just dominating the meta at this current point in time, I would be happy with a situation where I've ended up getting, I'd be really happy in a situation where I've ended up getting top 3 with a Jinx build in this current meta. It's perfect. What I would say, he's taking a gamble just for positioning. The Karma positioning that he's got there is it's going to 50-50 between the Malphite and the Jinx. He's basically just gambling that he hopes that it hits Jinx, because he doesn't want to sacrifice the Rebel positioning, which is really important, obviously.
Oh, man, and it does leash on to Jinx, so Karma's going to be walking. Jinx on that leash. If it was me, definitely would have hit that Malphite. The Echo. Oh, it's going to burst down the Jinx into the back line. That is so unfortunate. Why did that Echo hit her 4 different times? That was crazy. And Chris knew exactly what would happen to him after that Echo bursted him down. Now we're looking over at Viker, who is going to be able to take down the Echo or the clone.
Actually, Janna with Shojins is absolutely insane.
Shojins
is nutty. Shojins has become, like, in the matter of like the last week, Shojins has just become an insane item. Like, people have just started like valuing Shojins at a ridiculous level, and I can kind of see why. You can transfer it off the Ashe if you want to in the late game onto the Janna. It works wonders on the Janna. It's a great item for Bard if you pick it up in the early game, because you can generate a huge amount of XP. I'm starting to see the Shojins hype. I was kind of like looking at it and thinking, what's going on? Like, why are we seeing so many Shojins players? And now I'm kind of getting it. Like, this Janna is absolutely nutty with the Shojins.
So I don't know if you saw it, but earlier in Twitch Rivals, there was a Ginsu's double Shojins Janna that literally, it was in a Star Guardian comp, so we were getting that true damage, but she almost 1v4'd even a Shaco on the other side, because every time she ulted, it just took so long for them to travel those hexes eventually after the Shojins started coming. As we get our first victory, and it's as expected, it's going to be enclasee getting that 10 points. Hey, maybe that third time isn't a char, but curse that is a Fight Night Rising might change for enclasee, as we've got 2 very different results for our returning players, Nomi and enclasee, one getting 8th and enclasee getting 1st. We'll take a look at the standings in just a second, but that was par for the course, I think, for what we saw in terms of things that stood out. Chris's Jinx making it to the top 2, being such a separation of power too, with enclasee absolutely crushing it at the end. But we've got enclasee, Viker, and Chris setting themselves up in the top 3, with Quejicus, Vala, GuttaManero, Gio, and YouBetterKnowMe rounding out the top 8.
Yeah, YouBetterKnowMe took a risky strategy. Like we said, open forting is really good for gaining carousel priority, but you do need a stabilization plan. His was rolled down at 6, and unfortunately, as is TFT from time to time, he did not hit the units that he needed at level 6, and was just very quick to bow out, unfortunately. And enclasee, very, very early on, established a strong Jhin Ashe combination. He had that from the very early stages, and he committed to the Shojins Ashe with Ginsu. So he slammed a Ginsu, slammed a Shojins, and said, I'm just going to play Shojins Ashe mid game, see where I end up late. Got to level 9, hit some 2-star legendaries, and suddenly was just steamrolling the lobbies. So enclasee, yeah, okay, I would say high rolled his mid game a little bit, but he played it really well, committed the right items, and it was rewarded for it.
Yeah, I mean, even his bench probably could have beaten most of that lobby in that game, to be completely honest with you. I mean, he had like literally the perfect Thresh bench, 2 Lulus and Urgot, and I think there's another legendary on the bench, another Thresh, I think, on the bench for him to come back from his tier 2 Urgot and Thresh already on the field. So again, maybe some of those units like Urgot and Thresh a little less contested now, giving enclasee a really good window of opportunity there at the end. But this is actually something that I haven't quite seen. We did kind of see it, but it was a little bit more of Jinx players going after these Jinx things, like 3 or 4, but it felt like literally everybody going after Darkstar. I'd love to see kind of like the end lobby picture, right, to see how much purple we see, comparatively. Because then we might be able to tag Morton it. But, the moral of the story is this is a little bit different than what we've seen before, with everyone going after a single comp, minus enclasee and Chris there.
Yeah, I think from the change from the previous meta was that obviously previously people would be like, there would be 3 comps that people would chase, and those would be like you would be split across those 3 comps, and those are the ones that you'd be chasing. In this meta, it is literally everybody going for the same comp. Like, everybody is going for Darkstar. Everybody is going for Jarvan Jhin, and like there doesn't seem to be the flexibility. I don't know why though, because there are other comps that work. This is what baffles me. Like, Star Guardian Sorcerer it's got one of the highest like top 2 and win rates out of any comp in the meta, but obviously you need the blue buff to make it work. But people aren't going for it, and I don't get why. People are, yeah, I don't know. Well, exactly. Like it baffles me that even in my ranked lobbies, like even in like mid master in EU, everybody does this. They just go for Darkstar. And I'm like, well, there are other builds like Jinx top 3 there, Star Guardian Sorcerer is good enough, Vanguard Mystic can top 4 you. So it does actually baffle me that for some reason everybody is playing Darkstar. And maybe it's because like you don't actually need to get 2 stars to sort of do well in a lot of times. Like I think obviously to be solidly top 4ing, but you know, I've seen people do well with 1-star Jhin and 1-star Shakos before, so maybe that's the case. But yeah, it does baffle my mind that we are seeing a complete like maybe overbearing constriction of people just going for the same build, even when I do think there are other builds that work. You know, that's what confuses me.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. Even previously, right? It almost forced you into separate tracks, right, in our previous metas. But this time around, it just seems to be that kind of value when it comes to those Darkstar comps. And like just like you said, there are going to be options, and maybe going for the win here in Darkstar is going to be a little bit more honestly clear, which is I get the units, I probably win the lobby, right? If everyone's going after the same thing as me, where it's going to be a little bit riskier to go for something like Chris did with that Jinx a little bit earlier. It worked out for him in the end, but you do still have to roll into those units and high roll just like enclasee did. So I think what enclasee did was exactly how you're going to start competing against these Darkstar comps, which is just so popular right now. And it's so crazy because I think, is it us? Why don't people play sorcerers when we're casting, man? It's been 2 weeks now, and this comp is good. It could totally work, but no one plays it when we cast them. We'll see if it's going to happen a little bit later today here on Nicoverse.
Maybe I'm just missing something. Maybe it is genuinely very high risk, high reward. That's, you know, maybe that's the thing that I'm missing when it comes to assessing people playing this build. It might genuinely be like the fact that it's just way too high risk, high reward. Like if you just don't hit the blue buff, if you don't hit the 2-star Syndra early on, maybe you just can't get back into the game versus a lot of these sort of mid to late game Darkstar builds that we're seeing. But it does just baffle me. Like, interestingly, Nicoverse is one of those lobbies where I'm expecting people to go for Darkstar. So just because like the first Jhin that you hit, almost certainly people are gonna Nico it, right? Just to take those Jhins out the pool and make sure that you're establishing your dominance as the Darkstar player. But the other interesting pathway that we can look at in Nicoverse is I've seen people, and this is again something that I saw particularly from Jinx JK, I've seen people just go for Xerath in this particular instance. Like they just go for level 8, they look for a Xerath and they instantly double Nico's a Xerath in the Darkstar comp and then play around Xerath being the primary carry. So that's something to look out for as well. Like we could see people playing that strategy in Nicoverse because it is something that I think works well.
All right, and the thing about Nicoverse is it's just looking at who you're going to plop those Nico help on. A lot of the times you do wait for your legendary unit or maybe your tier 4 carry. We'll see if they're going to do it here. As enclasee committing the Shroud of Stillness early on with the Jarvan has always been one of my favorite items. I especially like it when you get 2, you can cover the whole board with your Shroud of Stillness if like a Thieves Gloves helps you out with that. But what do you think about this choice, committing those items on the Jarvan right now?
I think, like, let me think what he had. He had a red buff, he had a Trap Claw, he had Shroud of Stillness, and then he had a Xerot portal. There was a Last Whisper there, but obviously with no units to throw it on. I actually don't mind Shroud of Stillness as an item early on. I think, you know, early spell casts are very powerful, especially if you're looking to get the edge versus other Jarvans, for instance. If you're just delaying their spell cast and you get the first Jarvan ultimate off, that could often be very, very impactful. So I actually do like, and I rate Shroud of Stillness as an item. I also rate dodge items in general right now. I think there is a space in the world for dodge tank itemization where you're playing like Quicksilver, Trap Claw, Shroud of Stillness, because going up into their very, very strong world of Jhins and Shakos, like dodging basic attacks can be very influential, especially versus Jhin. So I think there is like a world where dodge items are maybe a little undervalued just for the pure dodge that they provide. And and like I said, I don't actually mind slamming Shroud of Stillness early on because I think it's a good item. Like it's an item that holds value throughout the entire game. So if it's the item that you think makes the most sense for you at this point in the game, do it.
Yeah, I remember Mort saying in terms of power level of completed item carousel, Zephyr and Shroud of Stillness are actually really strong when it comes to receiving them as completed items. Because you're always going to find, if you're positioned correctly with something like Shroud of Stillness and something like Zephyr, you're going to find value out of them every single round, as opposed to whiffing on some other options. But now we're still looking at GuttaManero, he started Brawlers last time too, so we'll see if he's going to stick with it. Something else we haven't seen, because I think it's really easy to talk about what we have seen, but in terms of things we haven't seen, is any mech players this time. Mechs have been able to sneak some victories out of the lobbies before, and mechs have a very storied history in this set. Why are we not seeing those mech players right now?
I think because mech is not in a great space in general, plus itemization for it is a bit funky right now. I think it struggles with the pure, like the amount of damage Jhin does, basically. Like Jhin can crit on his final hit for like 10, I've seen it for like 10,000 to 14,000 damage before.
Yeah.
And that's just one-shotting your mech regardless. And we talked a little bit about it last week in the sense that the mech pilots, when they get ejected, are basically useless now. When the mech dies, that's it for your mech. And mech is no longer the carry that it used to be. So to actually get huge value out of the mech, you often have to commit items to it that you would be better off committing elsewhere. Plus, there aren't many builds that synergize well with mech, and I don't think there are many builds that are strong in the current meta. Like, you can't really play 3-star Guardian mech. It's not great. And I think that Victor isn't in a great spot right now, so you can't really play the Victor carry sorcerer mech that we had. There just isn't many builds that I think do well with mech in the current meta. I do think there is space for a potential slow roll mech infiltrator build to come back, especially if you're playing like a stacked Zed, for instance, that might be able to deal with Jins. Like, you can steal a lot of AD from Jhin as a Zed. Like, that's, like one of those things where you can really pop off. But I haven't seen anybody make it work yet. It's something that I might end up trying. There's just a lot of builds that aren't really seeing play. Cybernetics aren't really seeing much play so far. Rebels definitely aren't seeing any play in the current meta. So yeah, I mean Chrono's always been a bit of a meme because the individual units are bad. Like, it's a splashable synergy. It's something you can't really play around like fully. But Chrono Ash has seen some unironic play in some scenarios too. So
yeah, I mean, anytime you get any type of like AoE CC, and we can bring Janna into this equation too, I think that's valuable, right? Not a ton of people have ultimates that do that. Even some of our single target CC like Nocturne is just not as valuable. So if you're going to have an ability that's going to be able to lock up 3 to 4 people for a couple seconds, and they're not going to be developing ult, they're not going to be putting damage onto you, and you get that Shojins to constantly throw those arrows out, I mean, that's pretty freaking strong. And if there's been a unit that's been consistently good over literally all stages of TFT, it has been Ashe, in my opinion. And at this point, it'd be weird to have a set without her. But we have Quejicus now, has a couple Ashes, has a couple Nika still at the ready, looking like we're potentially moving into some Infiltrator Darkstars, needs to get some of the items and units onto the field. But this is reminding me of old school Nobles, where you would just like start with a totally different comp and hoard the Nobles on your bench. And then once you get tier 2 and you get the units that you need, you just switch them all out. Which Quejicus is looking like he's doing.
Yeah, I to be honest with you, I think that's a very common tactic with a lot of different builds anyway. I think a lot of times people let that start off like Cybernetics, for instance, and then they'll just like drop Cybernetics and go into whatever build they want to from that point onwards. I do think that he should make the transition sooner rather than later. The reason I think that is because he was hampering his economy by holding so many random units on his bench. Like, he probably had like 15 to 20 golds worth of units just sat on his bench. So at some point you need to make the transition so you're not absolutely like hamstringing your economy. And you can see here he is going to sell off the units that he had. He's going to head towards 20 gold, and 20 gold is not ideal. Like, obviously 30 gold is the absolute the prime time for Terra Busters like gold thresholds, but 20 gold is respectable. Like, level 5 20 gold, I'll take it most times getting to Terra Busters, especially with the comp that he's now managed to pick up.
Ooh, gets the tier 2 Ashe very, very early. And actually, I've seen a couple. The third item to go on Ashe is something that I think people have kind of been deciding. I've seen blue buff on Ashe a couple times. Morello's is something that some people have run on Ashe just to get the Grievous on whoever she hits with that unit. But we're definitely looking for some attack speed, I think, for this Ashe. The tier 2 already has the large rod, has a second large rod, has the sword. If you want to get to that Shojin on that Ashe again, this is something that he can do. And Quejicus did just see that Ashe do work on that last lobby for enclaze. Checking out on the top of the lobby, we've got Chris, we've got enclaze, we've got Visor, and Nomi sitting at 5th place. The reason why I bring Nomi up again is he's on his 3rd week back, got 8th place because of some open fording shenanigans last time around, just not really working out for him as Quejicus gets another win.
Yeah, and I think Quejicus is in a very, very, very good spot right now. I mean, if you look at the units that he's got, I don't disagree with Morello's Ashe, but also he's trying to think about a Warmog's Jarvan, which I think is probably the better decision for a frontline unit. Like just slamming Warmogs on Jarvan is going to make him that much tankier. So I think like itemization-wise, he's just being a little bit more reserved. I love that. I think we're going to see a potential Star Guardian build. I mean, like, that makes the most sense to me because he's got a blue buff. Like I don't think that you play blue buff in a Darkstar build. I just can't see a world in which blue buff Darkstar builds make sense. And so you can see he's got the Syndra here, he's got the Zoe. Yeah, I think this is a good transition. I think you have to make this transition if you're playing with blue buff, because I just don't think blue buff is an item that works in Darkstar.
Yeah, I believe, Excoundrel, this is the first Syndra that we have seen as a carry so far as casters together. So it's crazy to me that it's taken so long, and I wonder where this is going to fall, right? Because no one's really going to be running this. He's going to continue to lose because he needs to get some tier 2 units. He's going to have to sell probably Jarvan or Rakan to get to 20. Is he going to stick to 19?
Sell Poppy. No, you sell Poppy.
Yeah,
Jarvan's
Poppy.
too important. Jarvan's too important for this build. Like you basically want to run Jarvan Nico as your front line, especially when you get Janna. Like Jarvan Nico becomes really strong because Janna's going to increase the attack speed of everybody on your team, and so is Jarvan, and you're going to get like true damage basic attacks coming from your carries. So this is actually a pretty good shop. But what I would say is that when you did mention that no one is going for this build, unfortunately there is one person going for this build. The guy he just lost to, I can't remember who it was, had the TF with the tier. He had 2 Syndras on his bench. So he had 2 Syndras on his bench. And yeah, this is definitely something that Nomi is going to be keeping an eye on because he is being contested. So the one lobby where we haven't seen anybody playing Syndras, but actually got a few people playing Syndras.
Right.
And Nomi's probably pretty salty about that, but you know.
I would be too, to be completely honest with you, right? You finally pulled the trigger to play in this comp that we've actually been talking about. Why haven't we seen it? And then finally 2 people decide to make the same decision on the same day. It's like when 2 people invent the same thing around the same time. Same kind of situation here for Nomi, who is, man, that Jarvan, man, so strong. Like, I think it's just living much longer than it has any credit to live for, in my opinion, especially with just a giant spell and a protector trait. That's pretty crazy.
I mean, you look at the other Jarvan, it's like a 1-star Jarvan with Warmogs, and it took no damage the entire fight. So that tells you more than the 2-star Jarvan with the giant spell, I think, realistically.
Hot fixed and everything. And it's funny because I think the community definitely helped with the hot fix, as Tej, one of the developers, put that meme, look at all those Jarvans, and he said because of how many retweets that got, they hot fixed it literally hours later. So, we have the power, folks. They're listening to us. So for any future reference when it comes to, hey, you know what? They're listening to our feedback. As enclase still in first place, honestly, compared to the last 3 weeks, enclase has been sitting usually in that like 3rd to 6th place spot, but crushing it right now. A little bit of growth from him. We've talked about Nomi a lot over the last 2 weeks, but now I think we had an opportunity to talk about enclase here on a 6-game win streak. Won the last lobby, feeling pretty good.
Yeah, enclase, he might be breaking that 3-week curse if he can do it. He's one of the guys that has just slowly but surely been pretty consistent across our weeks. And he's been on 2 big win streak games so far. This game is the second of the win streak games. He committed that Shroud of Stillness very early, and it's paid off dividends for him. He is obviously searching for Jhin. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him commit items to Ashe again if he finds the right setup for it. But right now, I think he's definitely searching for Jhin to be able to complete that sniper Darkstar build. I do think there's going to come a point where he will end up losing, but that Warmog's Jarvan is doing huge work on the front line for him. You can see how strong Warmog's is as an early item. The only issue he's got, and you're seeing it right here, is he doesn't really have any damage. So he's been relying specifically on like Ashe arrows to try and carry him through. But without Shojins, he's not getting enough of them, and that Jarvan wasn't able to survive long enough here.
And I don't know, I think Frodan and Dua coined this term, but only bad things happen to you when the casters are looking at your point of view, right? So if you're looking for like your last tier 3 to star, the second we transition out of your view, you'll probably grab it. So maybe this is our fault, but maybe also, you know, it did look like that was about to be the time where you start falling off in terms of there was no damage. It's been at 3-6. The beef is starting to come. The damage is starting to come too. And you're not going to be able to survive just on a utility ultimate with a good amount of damage when it comes to that Ashe. Vala also leveling up to 6, only 15 gold. Looking at the other side, with 50 gold, you're gonna have to try to win at these next couple rounds. So the Ashe arrow could have been a little bit better, but if that cast was tier 2, we might be in a different situation here, is that Morello's will destroy a lot of these comps with any type of lifesteal, with any type of ability to get HP back. And Vala is going to win another one. Thank goodness for him, as losing there would have been awful.
I'm seeing so many level 6 roll downs. It's actually ludicrous. Like there are so many people willing to roll down at level 6 for a 10% shot at Jhin. And I think that's what we see Vala did here. You can see he's also quite clearly committed 2 Nikos to that situation. Like he's gone for the 2-star Jhin very early. I'm wondering whether he actually picked up a Jhin off the carousel, because that Jhin has like got a random vest on him. So
yeah.
I mean, you would never commit a vest to a Jhin without having a BF sword to go with it. So I'm assuming this might even just be a straight up carousel Jhin, and he's just then said, okay, we're double Nicoing the carousel Jhin.
And Ashe completely whiffed on that ultimate. Remember the old bug where the arrow would keep flying forever and go across all the other boards? That's one of my favorite bugs ever in TFT. But the more of the story here is that a tier 2 Jhin is, I guess, that wanted, that needed, especially this early, to where you are going to sacrifice an item slot potentially just to grab it early on the carousel, because he did obviously use both Nikos there, right? And he won the race for most Jhins, and he's already taken 3 Jhins now out of these packs already at level 6 when we're barely just getting to those 4-cost units. That's going to be potentially him taking a lot of HP away from some other people. But these mages, actually, if this Syndra is able to get that Jhin in the back line, which looks like it might be able to, we're finally seeing these mages come online for Nomi, who's going to be AOK with popping that Jhin in the back line.
Oh, dude, he's also got the Rabadons for the Syndra as well. I think if we were to look at Nomi in a relatively short time, we'll be able to see kind of like where he's at. You can see he's got level 7. Level 7 is the ideal rolling scenario. He's got 4-star Guardians, but he's actually working with the sorcerers that he's got at this point in time. I'm guessing he's trying to transition into 6-star Guardians eventually here. But he's in a really strong spot. I think he's looking to not have to Nikos his Syndra, but there is a part of me that would be looking to potentially Nikos the Syndra, but he obviously has one on his bench. He's desperately looking for a Syndra too. But there is part of me that would be thinking maybe I should just straight up Nikos my Syndra here, because it'll be so important. But he's in a strong spot, like Rabadon Syndra with blue buff and also GA to prevent versus like Shaco taking her out of the fight instantly. Really good unit to have.
I mean, you're already seeing that the tier 1 Syndra, just with the Rabadons, is one-shotting the Jhins in the back line. The GA triggered for GuttaManero on the other side. But the thing about YouBetterKnowMe is, if he lands on that right unit, right, if he gets that Janna there at the end, things will be a change, because in terms of itemization, that's exactly what you want on your Syndra. The blue buff with the Rabadon's ban, that is going to burst some people down into especially in at the back line. Is this pack not really his favorite?
I think what he's thinking about right now is he needs to be level 8. Okay, so this is the thought process that I think Nomi's going through, and I'm not entirely sure, so don't quote me, but I get the impression that he wants to keep the Xerath. He wants to potentially 2-star the Xerath, and therefore he's making a decision between trying to roll down and find the 2-star Syndra to stabilize, and trying to get to level 8, because at level 8 if he finds the 2-star Syndra, he can just add the Poppy, get 6-star Guardians, and then double Nico's the Xerath and have a really, really strong sorcerer composition. But obviously, to get to that point, he needs to be able to stabilize and not die. So I'm thinking once he has the gold to get to level 8, he's probably going to go to level 8, try and find a Syndra 2, and then double Nico's the Xerath. That would be my thinking. Maybe he takes the tier here because he has a spat and he goes for a Star Guardian. That would be like a heads up play. That would be a heads up play in my opinion.
And you can do Star Guardian Jarvan, at least for now.
Oh, yeah, no, I would 100% Star Guardian Jarvan. That's pretty solid.
Oh, man, and then when Janet gets on the board and everyone gets that attack speed and everyone's going to get it a bunch of different times, you got the Nico Protector. Man, it's just those protectors slot in so good on so many different kinds of comps. I think kind of like old school Rebels where you just put your 2 Rebels in. Now you can put your 2 Protectors in. Nico's going to be ulting way more frequently. I mean, she got some pretty major buffs on that last patch, which helps this comp, especially with that front line. She got way beefier. So people were experimenting earlier on about putting things like Titan's Resolve and Warmogs on her, but definitely seeming like those items going to be favoring on to that Jarvan. But now you're right, though. It's so many decisions here. Do you roll maybe even just the 30 gold for the Syndra? You're definitely going to be putting that spat onto that Jarvan. I mean, because the other idea too is the
other idea is Xerath, and then you have Janna for the true damage. But I think Jarvan makes the most sense to me right now. And at this point, he doesn't need the Poppy. I think you just go 8, and then you search for the Syndra, and then you double Nico's the Xerath, and I think that puts you in a good spot.
And he was able to tank a little bit more too, as he was able to ult a little earlier. This Syndra, though, like I think the last 2 rounds would have gone so different if he had a tier 2 Syndra, because that Syndra is one-shotting tier 2 units on the other side of the board. I mean, I feel like at this point you roll, maybe you're gonna get to 8, you roll to 0, you have to hit your Syndra, and if not, you gotta Nico it.
Yeah, I think you just hope that you hit your Syndra naturally here.
Woo. Oh, there he goes. He gets it.
it.
Now he can Nico that Xerath if he chooses.
I would be probably Nicoing my Xerath. Like you've got to Nico somebody at this point. I would probably be Nicoing my Xerath.
I mean, it's the only one that can really use it outside of the Soraka, but a Soraka 2 is not really going to be adding a ton of value.
This is interesting. Maybe he's thinking that he can survive one more round to the neutral round, and then that's when he'll make that decision. But who else are you thinking about Nicoing if you're not going to Nico your Xerath? That's my question.
Exactly. Well, because at that point, if you're not going to Nico your Xerath, you should have Nicoed your Syndra a little earlier. You know what I mean? And he's going to lose. He is going to make it to the NPC round, and he's going to have to be perfect from here on out, which this comp can do if the Syndra targeting is absolutely perfect for him. In terms of items, he's going to be looking potentially for some for the Xerath. What are you particularly hoping for here?
Well, I would like to get a Quicksilver. So Quicksilver would be good. Quicksilver Ginsus would be the ideal here for the Xerath. That would be perfect itemization. If I hit that, I would definitely be slamming the Nikos. The other thing that I'm thinking about is he thought that he could survive until the neutral round. I'm guessing that the thought process is, if I naturally hit one more Xerath, then I can Nico Nikos the Nico, or I can Nico the Soraka. So that would be my thoughts. He has actually got the Quicksilver. I would be making the Quicksilver here, and then I'd make a Xerath on the Jarvan personally.
Man, I am.
Janna. That's
so now
an interesting one.
Yeah, there are definitely some decisions to be made now, especially since the Xerath isn't that Star Guardian, but the Jarvan going to be doing a little bit of true damage, a little bit of extra damage there. It's actually going to Nico the Janna. We talked about how strong that unit is. Any unit with AoE CC is so strong, and now you've got Star Guardian Jarvan, who's going to get to that attack speed a little bit earlier. Janna with that Hurricane is going to be pumping out actually a lot of auto attack damage, especially after this Jarvan ults, but actually the Janna misses out on the extra attack speed, and you already look at how much stronger this team is, but is it going to be strong enough? One more ult from the Syndra should be able to do it. GA triggered, and YouBetterKnowMe looks like he will stable. He should be able to win this, no problem. Yeah,
just about. Yeah, still close. You wouldn't like it to be that close. Yeah, this is interesting. It's just a different line that I would have taken. I understand how strong 2-star Janna is. I really do understand how strong 2-star Janna is. It's just I would have been probably saying, well, 2-star Xerath is really good. You know, maybe I just sit him in the corner with a Quicksilver. Very interesting that he decided to go for the Runan's Hurricane on the Janna. I'm guessing because it guarantees you another bolt that fires as true damage. Now, this is something that I've always wondered. I'm not sure if it's absolutely the case. I don't know if the Runan's Hurricane Bolt generates you more natural mana. That's my question. Does the Runan's Hurricane Bolt generate you natural mana? Compared to, like, do you need the Shojins on it, basically? That would be my question.
I do not think it does. I think it counts as just extra magic damage. But look, whoo, man, this one is, look at that Janna go.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I mean,
I don't think it does either, by the way. I think I'm in agreement with you. Wow, he actually loses. I'm in agreement with you. I don't think it does generate you any extra mana, but I've always wondered that. Because I've never tested it and I've never been able to like really tell in my games when I've just slammed a random hurricane.
Like
I never
extra
really
5 mana or something.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to get the idea behind the thinking of a Runans on the Janna. I'm guessing it's because the extra bolt does actually fire as true damage. He did go for the Star Guardian Urgot as well, which is interesting, and got rid of the Jarvan. So he has lost a bit of attack speed generation. He's lost Darkstar as well. And actually, I actually favor Victor over Xerath if you're getting rid of Darkstar, personally. I actually think Victor's a better sorcerer than Xerath if you're actually getting rid of the Darkstar.
Yeah, and the Urgot's going to be positioned to the front line because of those changes, but at least because he is a Star Guardian, every time the rest of these Star Guardians are going to ult, it's going to give him another opportunity to eat some food, and is going to get bursted down because of that Chum the Water so quickly. Huge Janna ultimate there at the end. One more ult from the Syndra. It's going to be it. And that's the thing about these Star Guardian comps. I feel like they always get to the very last second like that, right? It's just one ult from the Syndra bringing them the victory.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on how he does. He's obviously not 8th because we have actually already lost a member of our squad. But we can keep an eye now on enclasee, who is at top position again, playing a very similar build to previous. It looks like obviously that Echo, who is super strong at dealing with high attack speed units. He's going for the Trap Claw, it looks like, or potentially going for the Zeeks, which is going to be the case. And this build looks almost identical, although no, that's a lie. He's playing 4 Infiltrators Protector. Which is a build that I've started to see. Also, Frozen Heart Shaco is absolutely broken, so that makes a lot of sense.
Frozen Heart on Assassins is always going to be hard to balance, I think, no matter what, just based on how it works. Is Fizz going to get the Zeke's going to get his fellow Assassins a little bit of extra attack speed, and I think we're seeing the profits of going something that maybe your other friends aren't going in the lobby, as Echo 2 so early at 5/5 because no one else is going that Echo, right? And we also saw that Echo burst down a Jinx a little earlier, so it's not like these tier 5 units are bad. It's just the Dark Stars and the way that they work just are technically better right now. But I'm definitely intrigued to see how these Dark Stars deal with these infiltrators in the back line. Nice Trap Claw on the Ashe is definitely going to help, especially if the Shaco hits that Ashe and another dodge item onto that Jhin, but so much just initial burst damage with the Urgot to kind of follow things up there. enclasee sitting pretty. Ooh, that was nice. I like this comp.
Yeah, I actually think that there is a huge amount of merit in going infiltrators in this meta. You heard us previously talking about a potential mech infiltrator build that could work, because so many people playing snipers, so they just sit at the back line. And although Karma is very strong, and that's one of the things that you do have to be aware of when you're playing infiltrators, the Karma shield is ludicrous right now. I do think there is merit to playing a infiltrator-focused build with the fact that there is a ridiculous number of Darkstar players and Jhin players and sniper players. I do genuinely believe that what you're seeing right here is a good build to counter the current meta, and I'd love to see if people decide to run this a bit more often, because it is something that I think genuinely can do well in countering the way the meta is right now, especially with how strong Echo can be at dealing with individual units and slowing down attack speed. And remember, whenever you slow attack speed of Jhin, you really hamper his actual damage output, because Jin's bonus attack speed goes to provide extra AD, in sort of the... It provides him extra AD. So Frozen Heart on Shaco is a great counter to Jhin, and any kind of attack speed slow like the Echo is a great counter to Jhin, and actually does severely limit his damage output. So, enclasee playing a build that I do genuinely think has got legs.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. It's almost like it's built to respond to this Darkstar comp a little bit, right? What are you going to do if your Jin's going to be sitting pretty in the back line? Well, send someone back there to take care of him yourself. They might get bursted down if maybe they jump back there and he's on his 3rd or 4th shot already. But you're giving yourself, I think, the best opportunity possible to win out in the end as a Rabadon's on Jin. That's a way that you could get to those like 14k crits there at the end. And while that's visually pleasing, I don't know if that's going to be the best option. Static Shiv, at least you've got some people who can proc it occasionally, especially with Ginsu's with that Ash. You might be able to just slap it on there. Maybe the Xerath, now that it's tier 2. I know he's got Thieves Gloves anyway. So
yeah, he's got
what are
Thieves
you
Gloves.
thinking about Vala?
Vala's, I think he's got a strong build. I think the issue is that maybe he just doesn't have the HP total to sort of like one bad fight and he's kind of going down the drain. That's the problem that I think he's in right now. But his build looks very strong. I mean, if you look at this is a build that would quite easily net you a top 1 scenario, and actually now adding the Celestial as well to ensure that he gets some lifesteal on this Jin. He's actually, I do think he's got a very strong build. And actually, I actually credit with what he's just done here. He sold to get the Zephyr back, because it's important with that 4 HP that, you know, you're looking at a potential top 4 here. That one single Zephyr could essentially save the game for you, and it looks like it might have done.
Jesus Christ, the damage coming in from Vala was nutty, as Chris is going to survive with 1 HP on Enclase once again. And I mean, to put it into perspective, he won the last lobby by about 50 HP, and he's on track to maybe even do the exact same thing. Proud of you, buddy. Maybe the third week curse is going to be broken with you this week, as he gets Echo 3. That's only happening because of the Dark Star.
He got Echo 3?
He got Echo 3.
Wait, he got Echo 3?
3.
Oh my, okay, there's no way he loses. This game's over. Enclase is top 1. I hadn't even noticed that he was collecting that many echoes on his bench. Oh my word. Yeah, and he's managed to pick up he has managed to pick up a Morello's on it. Yeah, there's no way that Enclase loses. You can't lose with the 3-star legendary. They are designed to auto win the game for you.
Oh, remember Lux did 99,999 damage at tier 3? What is it? Reminds me of like the slap fights that you have when you're kids, right?
Oh my god, like what was that? Okay, it looks like we've lost Chris as well. Chris actually drops out in 5th.
Oh,
and Valor drops out too. Yeah,
I mean, this is going to be an Enclase win here, and the tiebreakers coming into consideration is Vala getting 3rd, Quejicus getting 4th, and Chris getting 5th. And that's actually a really, really big deal, because he was 3rd in our last lobby. It's going to put a little bit of a question on who might be able to come back next week, as GuttaManero, who I believe finished in 6th place in that last lobby, is going to be going up against an Echo 3, and looking at his face, he does not have high expectations.
Enclase sold all of his units. He's only fielding 5 units right now. Just look, he's fielding 5 units in total.
All right, let's see this Echo go. Here we go. Oh
so
my goodness. Thank you Enclase for showing us that. We might not ever see it again. You know what I mean? It's just like one of those situations. We get one more try at it, and I mean, it was a little close for comfort, actually. If the Urgot eats the Echo for some reason, it might be a little bit different.
Yeah,
but, hey,
I mean, I would be concerned sometimes. You know, I would be potentially concerned. If the Urgot ends up grabbing hold of the Echo and no one kills the Urgot, then yeah, I would be a little concerned, I suppose.
What a flex, man.
Is he looking for 3-star? He's strictly just looking for 3-star Urgot, by the way.
This is amazing. I mean, what a way to assert your dominance on a lobby. You know what I mean? This is the ultimate form of trash talk, in my opinion. But now there is a Lulu on at the other side, and there's, I think, like a 20% chance that it hits that Echo. So who will
more than that? There is only 6 units, so there's a 66% chance that the Echo gets turned. Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah, and the Lulu does take it. I don't think it matters though in the end.
No.
Yeah, buddy. Oh man, that used to remind me of like Fiora's old ult from like way back in the day, the Blade Dance ult. But man, ladies and gentlemen, that was a treat. We got a 3-star Echo, and honestly, we can thank our Dark Star meta gods for that 3-star Echo. That's 2 lobby wins for enclaze as well.
I think realistically, the what to take away from this is that Darkstar and Jin is still very strong, but there are builds that work as a specific counter, and I do think infiltrators, like no one plays Zed. A few people play Fizz. Obviously, Shaco's contested, but you could get him to 2-star. Yeah, I think there is legs for an infiltrator-focused build to be like an anti-meta composition, and I think enclaze definitely hit the nail on the head there. Infiltrators do well versus Jin, and infiltrators do well versus Ashe, so it makes sense.
Yeah. And a good thing for him, the nail that he was hitting was absolutely enormous with an Echo 3. But we do have the standings after our second lobby. We're going to see enclaze at the top. Oh, it's not even close. But look at how similar the top, with Quejicus getting 2 6s, Krisz getting a 7 and a 4. Things are pretty even. YouBetterKnowMe, though, struggling there at the bottom of the leaderboard. But because enclaze did rip off 2 wins in a row, what that does inherently, it makes everything below that a lot closer. So still not over. And maybe he's going to be able to sneak in for it next week, but a victory is looking far from reach.
Yeah, and obviously, enclaze already, I think 20 points or there or thereabouts by the halfway point is quite clearly a great cutoff to sort of head towards top 3 scenario. enclaze is definitely in a great spot right now, and I think with 2 games left to go, he'd have to come 8th twice, and a couple of other results would have to go against him to really see him being shoved out of the standings and potentially losing his spot coming back next week for Fight Night. So enclaze, 2 great games, already setting myself up for success, but like you said, plenty of room for comeback here. We've seen stranger things in European Fight Nights, and YouBetterKnowMe could undo his early turmoil with a couple of good results in the next few games.
That's true. And right before we throw it to break, I do want to say, you got to say it, especially after someone rips off 2 lobbies in a row. That's only happened, I think, 3 or 4 other times in all of the Fight Night Rising. I think Gunmay probably has 50% of those. But in terms of record-setting points, we're still in the running for enclaze. If he's able to win another lobby and get second, I believe he's going to be able to at least tie for that record. So hey, you gotta give it to the people. There's still that opportunity to see something else that we've never seen before here on Fight Night, as we got to see Echo 3. But if you thought that was exciting, we're going to have even more exciting lobbies coming up after the break. We'll see you then. Excoundrel here again, and I think the moral of the story is Echo 3 pretty good, huh, Excoundrel?
Echo 3, yeah, Echo 3 pretty good, dude. Echo 3 absolutely insane. Like, I mean, 3-star legendaries are designed to be auto-win conditions. Like, if you hit a 3-star legendary, like, I saw someone, one of the ones that really sticks out in my mind is I saw someone play 3-star Gangplank and then just took every other unit off the field and just had Gangplank. And then the ultimate still one-shot the whole board. So, you know, I think 3-star legendaries are designed to be auto-win conditions. They're so rare that you shouldn't really ever be getting them without like a ridiculous number of Nikos. So, you know, I think you deserve first place if you're able to pick up a 3-star legendary. You know, that's just what it is.
It's like a kind of like a shame on you to the lobby. That's like, you let this man get 9 legendaries of the same unit. You deserve this loss. I mean, you know, that goes to show that scouting can be very good, but no one needed the Echo. I mean, the only time that anyone else in that lobby would grab an Echo was so someone else didn't get it, and enclasee was able. I mean, it was pretty early too. From I think it was before Kane that we got that 3-star Echo. So. Oh, Jesus Christ. Pretty good. But anyway, moving on to the next half of this wonderful lobby that we have for Fight Night Rising EU edition. Our first place player is enclasee, and he has been crushing it so far. He has 2 lobby wins, and so far seems to have the best handle out of, honestly, most of the people in this lobby so far. What is he doing differently than the rest of the lobby is doing? You know, I think team comps is the easy answer there, but is there anything else that you want to point out that he's doing just a little bit differently that's brought him a perfect score so far?
I mean, I wouldn't even say for the first lobby that team comps were that different. He was basically playing Dark Star Protector Sniper, but with the fizz and the echo in, you know, over anything else. But I think realistically, he's utilizing infiltrators really well. He's building very good early win streaks. Now, whether that's high rolling or just good early decision making, I don't know. But you know, irrespective, he's still managing to utilize early win streaks to his advantage. And one of the things that's really benefiting him is he's getting to level 9 very quickly. He's fast 9ing, and then using that to build a strong board of legendaries. I don't know if you've seen what's kind of been It's
Sorry.
Dwarf Planet. This is a great galaxy. Really well thought out galaxy. I don't know if you've seen people playing the Peeba comp. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but there's something called a Peeba comp, and it's basically you just fast 9, you play your strongest board, and you just field legendaries. And that's something that I think that we're seeing enclasee do quite a bit of.
Yeah, if you ever have like 5 minutes to have Crowan just talk about Peeba with you, it's so funny, man. Apparently Peeba is just like a crazy. He'll do something crazy. We'll like have like 11 HP and then go perfect for the rest of the board or get 8th. So he's like an 8th or 1st player, and that's why those Peeba comps are notoriously really fun to play, as well as YouBetterKnowMe has been having a hard time today. You know, the last 2 weeks we were kind of getting on him for being a little down on himself. I mean, the fact that he's been here for 3 weeks, and honestly, the last 2 lobbies have been super strong in terms of the people who are participating. He should feel really, really good about where he's at, though he does need to kind of get it under control for this lobby. Another person who's actually been pretty impressive is Chris. Has been in the middling of the table, but when it comes to TFT, that's A-okay. It's all about that consistency. And again, here at the beginning of a lot of these rounds, something that we usually don't talk about is our board, but that's exactly what we're going to talk about this time, as both back rows are going to be taken out. That inherently means snipers get weaker, but what else does it mean, Excoundrel? I know you absolutely love this galaxy, I can tell.
So Dwarf Planet generally tends to favor big AoE abilities, like Gnar becomes incredibly good. Actually, Mech can do well on Dwarf Planet. It's one of the builds that are one of the galaxies that I think really favors Mech. It is good for infiltrators because they have less gap, or they can move very quickly between backline and frontline. The only thing that it really doesn't favor is things like snipers, like you said. It's pretty good for rebels, actually. Like, it's a pretty solid rebel galaxy because Jinx can be a bit further forwards. She doesn't have to travel as far when shooting. It's decent for Brawler Blaster because, again, Jinx and Gnar both benefit from being a little bit closer to the enemy. So it's just one of those galaxies that I don't think it changes much, other than it literally just makes backline carries like snipers a bit weaker. But it does open up the floor in this current meta to more diverse builds like the Mech, like the Gnar focused build. So Teemo, for instance, gets a lot of value because there's less space for him to miss his shrooms and get more value shrooms out. So yeah, I think Yeah, it's definitely a galaxy that has its merits, but also a galaxy that doesn't quite have its merits. And I guess we'll see if anyone decides to deviate, because whenever I play this galaxy, most people are still playing Dark Star Sniper regardless, just because it's that strong. So we'll have to see if anyone deviates away from the norm here.
Yeah, I wonder if enclasee, though, has kind of taken Fluffy's approach to this lobby, which is just, hey, you know, I know that a lot of people are going to be coming in trying a couple different things, and I'm just going to try something totally different. And this particular galaxy, though, might have you question that strategy a little bit more, as you might see a lot more variation, like you said, in flexibility here, even though we're seeing the Jarvans. The Jarvan's going to get even better with that AoE when it comes to, you know, what some people have colloquially and I think lovingly called this galaxy the set 1 galaxy. Because it's taken a lot of the hexes off of the board. And anytime I think about set 1, I think about shapeshifters and Kennen. And for some reason, I miss them. Even though Kennen was a little bit of an issue back in set 1. But yeah, here we go. We are on enclases, and we've got early Xin Zhao. I mean, the last time we saw an early Xin Zhao Excoundrel, we saw Warmogs get popped on that Xin Zhao. I don't think it's going to happen this time, but you know, one.
Yeah, Xin Zhao 2 is like an insane early win condition. Like you can snowball so hard with Protectus and Xin Zhao 2. It's actually ludicrous. And so like right now enclases, I mean, like this is definitely a high roll. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend like this isn't a high roll. This is an absolute high roll for enclases. Definitely the start that you want if you're playing any kind of protected composition, to have a Xin Zhao 2. You get Celestial for free with the Rakan, you get Protectors, and he's also running Chrono, so Xin Zhao's going to collectively get a bit more attack speed throughout the course of the fight. Brilliant start for enclases. He's definitely 100%ing this, at least until the Terror Busters, and then we can see where we go from there.
I don't understand how anyone breaks through that Xin Zhao, at least for the next 3 or 4 rounds. To get a tier 2 Xin Zhao that early, I mean, before the PvP rounds even started, you're going to be feeling pretty good, especially with the Nikos on your bench, as Gio is going to be looking at an early Battlecast start. Something that we haven't quite seen a lot of is Cybernetics as well, a comp that we saw a little bit too much of a month ago or so, but now we're feeling a little bit, you know, longing for a comp like that. The biggest change when it comes to Cybernetics, I think, is more so that a lot of those units just get beat by a lot of those Dark Star comps a little bit later. But if you want to kind of elaborate on why we haven't really been seeing the Blade Masters and the Cybernetics as much, and if we're going to see it on this particular galaxy.
So Blade Masters, unfortunately, if you're talking about 6 Blade Master comps, the only one that really works right now is Shredder 2.0. Otherwise, you rely on getting too many 3 stars, and that's not a, you know, when you're going up against the Dark Star comps that spike with a load of 2 stars, you just can't afford to make that kind of decision. Cybernetics, one of the main issues is that Irelia can't get through Protectors quickly enough. So unless you have Infiltrator Spat, and Irelia is now the major carry for Infiltrator Cybernetics because of all the buffs she's got, she still has the same issue where she cannot one-shot tanks, and that means she's not able to reset quickly enough, and that means that Jins just kill her before she can do anything. Infiltrator Spat Irelia is a different story. You can definitely play Cybernetics if you pick up Infiltrator Spat, especially alongside the Echo. It's a very strong comp, but Vayne, the old mid-game carry from Cybernetics, is no longer good enough to get you a top 3 spot in most circumstances. It's still fine. I still see people play Vayne Infinity Edge Last Whisper in Cybernetics, but she did get hit pretty hard with the nerf bat. Irelia is designed to be the major carry. And unfortunately, as is the problem with Irelia, she cannot get through tanks if they are too beefy, especially with like things like Warmogs, Jarvans, and things like that. And she's susceptible to CC, and you don't want to waste a slot on her by putting Quicksilver. You'd rather have like GA, Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, something like that. So yeah, you need to infiltrate a spat, and it's, again, if you're relying on a spat to make your composition work, especially with the changes that came into set 3 about how spats are found, it's just not reliable enough.
All right, so I think you called it, though. We actually do see a lot of Dark Stars coming online. We already have a Karma and a Jarvan. Sometimes that's all you need, especially with that tier 2 Caitlyn sitting in the back. Man, they look so awkward, not in the corners, don't they? It's like kind of like an odd number in that XP bar. But yeah,
actually potentially Shredder. This is potentially Shredder. The reason I think it's Shredder is he hasn't leveled up, so he's level 4 still. Usually if you were going anything outside of a hyper roll comp like Shredder, you'd be potentially looking to level up at level around 2.5 because it's just safer, but he hasn't leveled up here. And he's hoarding things like Fiora and things like Xayah. The only thing I'd say he's going to struggle with is if he doesn't hit a 2-star Xayah soon, he is going to be fighting against the rolling random RNG. So he could either be heavily rewarded But I usually like to, like, if I'm going to commit to a Xayah comp, I usually like to have like a 2-star Xayah by 2-3, and the ideal number of Xayahs that I want is 5 by the time that I get to the Terror Busters, because that makes it much easier for me to achieve my 3-star dreams. But yeah, he just has only got 2 Xayahs right now, so he may be a little punished in the mid game if he doesn't get the right roll RNG that he wants.
And we've got Shojins on the Xayah here for Vala, so that's definitely not going to be sticking on that Xayah. Not usually an item we see for him. Definitely going to be holding on to it. Maybe looking for the Ashe when it comes to the Shojins completed. Outside of the Ashe, who are some of our other like big Shojins users? Ashe, Janna is someone else that we saw. Who else could this possibly be going on?
Shojins goes in Bard sometimes if you want to use him in the early game, but obviously not having found a Bard early on, probably not going to see that. The other units that use Shojins well is usually someone like Rakan. But honestly, the 3 big ones are Rakan, Ashe, and Janna. And Ashe and Janna really are the big Shojins users that most people go for in this current meta. So I think you're right. It's going to be for Ashe at some point down the line, or for Janna. But he's just utilizing it on Xayah because she is a unit that doesn't use it well, because the problem with Xayah is when she activates her ultimate, she can no longer gain mana, but it does mean that she can constantly get back to that ultimate state quickly, which if you get a 2-star Xayah in the mid game, that might be more than enough with offensive items to carry you. So that's obviously what you'll be keeping your eyes on with having it on the Xayah. But it's not, like you said, it's not going to stick. It's not going to stay there.
And she is someone that tends to get at least a couple ultimates off, because you usually do corner her and keep her safe, since she's going to be your early game carry at least for a little while longer. So it's good to invest some items in her, especially if you're going to transition a little bit later into someone who's going to be able to have similar kinds of items. GuttaManero is freaking out over there. And YouBetterKnowMe, I think, is potentially was open forting a little while earlier. 5 loss streak, 68 HP, tied for last place, but has AP upon AP available for himself. It looks like it's going to be another Star Guardian approach here, but all tier 1 units. We'll see how strong the Syndra is going to be, but it's looking like another loss. What does he need to do here to kind of stabilize? I mean, he's already got the first couple steps to do it.
I think he needs to get tier on the next carousel. He needs to get to 6, and then he needs to stabilize at 6. He also doesn't have any Star Guardians on the board right now, so Syndra is going to take a very long time to cast. So he needs to get to 6, and he needs to stabilize. I would be, if I were next Nomi, I would probably be taking the chances of not rolling down to 0. I would potentially go to 6 on 3-2, maybe roll down to 20 or 30, build back up, try and go to 7 and do the same thing. If I don't hit, accept that it's an 8th, and that's it. That's the way I'd be playing this game, unfortunately, just in the position that he's in right now.
Well, it seems like that he has been playing a very high risk, unfortunately so far low reward game so far, but he does get that tier 2 Zinzal. That's definitely going to help at least provide a little bit of front line, because we saw how his team got melted. It was pretty much like getting tissue paper wet there in the back line. Does finally get some Star Guardians and Sorcerers. That tier 2 Annie is actually going to be a little bit more tankiness up in the front line. Did get some of those tank some of that tank love in a couple patches ago that helped out a lot of our other more beefy units. Let's see how YouBetterKnowMe is going to go up against enclasee, who did just lose probably against Vicer a little earlier. Man, enclasee really loves that early Shroud of Stillness. This is the second lobby in a row he's done that.
It's very, very good versus builds like next Nomi's. You can see he gets absolutely flattened because he's not even able to get that first Syndra cast off easily enough. Yeah, he's 46 HP at 3-3. That is not good if you're next Nomi. What I would be doing if I were him would be, okay, accept that I'm going to lose the next round, build back up as much economy as I can, go to 7, and hope to all hells that I can just hit 6 Star Guardians and field them. And with the blue buff, maybe I can get a 2-star Syndra as well. I wouldn't be rolling here. I do get the idea behind the rolling here, but I think you're gonna need to get to 7 to field the full like strong version of this comp anyway. So at some point in the next 3 to 4 rounds, I'm going to need to think about getting level 7.
It's a requirement when it comes to playing this comp. And once again, he's slow going on finding those Syndras, a unit that not a lot of people are contesting. We haven't quite gotten to see, I think, the full run of it so far in this lobby. This one going a little bit better. Thank goodness for him. He actually might be able to pull out just a 1-unit loss. No, but this is okay for YouBetterKnowMe. This is what he wanted to do 3 rounds ago, which is just lose by 1 or 2 units, not lose 24 HP in 2 rounds at 3-2 and 3-1. That is not good, my friends, to be at 41 HP. I mean, 50 HP is very, very bad for this point in the game, right? But to be below that is almost hitting critical mass. As we're looking over at enclasee, who only has 1 loss so far in this lobby, has the best little legend as well. Definitely the tastiest of all the little legends. And I wonder what he's going to end up looking for. He's got a lot of opportunities to go a lot of different directions. Probably will stick to the Dark Star Sniper this time around. But we don't know with enclasee. He's been a little bit of a loose cannon so far, ripping off these 2 victories in a row.
I mean, he's a very testament to slamming early items, and this was a bit of a high roll game, like we said. He hit the 2-star Xin Zhao very early on. You know, that's something that is always going to generate a good early win streak for you. So, you know, I'm not gonna turn around and say that it's been like all insane decision making. Like hitting a 2-star Xin Zhao is a great situation to be in. He's going to go for the Ionic Spark as well here, which I think he's going to put on the Xin Zhao as well. I'm wondering whether eventually he's going to cull the Xin Zhao. Like maybe that's something that he's intending to get rid of eventually, because obviously, like for instance, the Ionic Spark on the Fizz is like a really, really good unit. And then he's maybe looking for Shojins on the Ashe. Like just going Runans doesn't do as much for the Ashe, so I think you're obviously looking for Shojins at some point here.
Oh man, that Chum Waters is actually huge in the backline. Doesn't do as much damage as one might have expected there. The Xin Zhao gonna get taken through, eaten out, taken out of this round, and it looks like GuttaManero is going to be able to find the victory there with, I know, right? With a couple really good opportunities to continue developing that lead. Sorry, the producer made me laugh in the background. I'm still trying to recover.
You made me laugh as well, mate. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Still trying to recover. I almost went there, man. I almost. I
wasn't gonna say anything.
I know. I almost powered through it, man. But the mystery man in the ear it completely debilitated my thinking. Because the second I said it, I was like, "Yep, I said that." Anyway, go ahead.
You saved it. You saved it, though. I mean, like, credit to you. You stopped yourself mid-sentence and you realize I'm about to say something that sounds hilariously bad. So I'm not going to say anything.
Urgot wasn't even on the field. I can't even use that as a literal term. Anyway, as enclasee is going to be finding out there's going to be a mech player finally, and this is actually something that you taught me about, Excoundrel, the ZZ Rot mech Visor, completely perfect so far on it. I know you talked about it last week, but let's bring it up again because I like hearing it from your mouth, my friend. Why is ZZ Rot on mech so strong?
So, we talked a little bit about the strength of mech and the weaknesses of mech. And one of the big weaknesses of mech is that when it drops its mech pilots, they come out of very low HP, and they're often unable to have any kind of significant impact in the game. So with Z-Rot, what happens is that Z-Rot will naturally taunt enemy units to attack it, which gives the time for your mech pilots to actually do something without being completely useless. And that's why Z-Rot is actually a pretty solid item to consider on mech, especially because it benefits from health and attack speed pretty well as well. And now he's got a potential Bramble Vest as well.
Yeah,
so he's got a very, very spicy looking mech.
Yeah, I mean, he's already sitting at 100 HP, already a Rumble 2, and the fact that he has a mech already, and the fact that I think 3 players already have Fizz, I think goes to show like how aggressive I think some of these players are rolling. I think that's the result of so many players rolling to 6 or spending all of that gold to level to 6 and then getting to 7 a little bit quicker, delaying that 8 to try to get to, I think, a faster 9 seems to be how a lot of these players seem to be approaching this kind of mid-rangey type of game. But man, Shroud of Stillness, ZZ Rot, and Bramble on the mech is going to be pretty good, but this double Rabadon's tier 2 blue buff Syndra for Nomi unfortunately gets taken out super early before being able to ult, but that might not be the same next time Visor and Nomi come again together. They did it again. Visor now Visor now, it's sitting pretty.
Oh, boop.
I know that one. That one was just a little too easy, low hanging fruit. Chris, 62 HP, Excoundrel. I'm gonna need you to talk for me right now.
That's fine. I will talk for you. I think what you saw there from Visor is the strength of mech on this particular galaxy. You're just much more likely to get a big ultimate that actually hits a number of targets, because you kind of bringing the backline close to mech. One of the biggest things that mech always struggled with was like getting through the front line quickly enough to actually impact the back line. Like the cleave would never hit the back line. The ultimate would usually never hit the back line off the very get-go. Dwarf Planet brings everybody closer together. Aww. And that allows mech to be a lot more impactful in terms of positioning and actually getting impactful ultimates off ASAP. So yeah, I think mech is just pretty solid in general on this particular galaxy.
All right, something that we're seeing is super solid right now is TFT, who has no business being that strong in the back line, takes care of every member that's going to be doing a ton of damage. Is having a little bit of a hard time going through that Jarvan, but man, that TFT damage is going to be nutty there. Yeah, 7,400 damage, which is going to be more than everyone else on his team combined there. So TFT definitely showing up, and Bloodthirster, one of my favorite items on the TFT. In terms of itemization, I think it's worth talking about TFT just a little bit since we're seeing him a little bit more frequently. Is this kind of on brand for that TFT kind of carry?
Yeah, this is like perfect itemization. Bloodthirster GA, really, really good. People sometimes still like to go Infinity Edge, but it's a bait. You don't need to. Like most of the damage comes from his ultimate, which is a guaranteed critical strike anyway. So there's no need to go for Infinity Edge on TFT. I think that going for maybe a Giant Slayer or a Rapid Fire Cannon is something that you can consider. There is mixed opinion about Rapid Fire Cannon on TFT, but Bloodthirster GA, absolutely. TFT of old, like you 100% play that every time.
Oh my goodness, as TFT is going to get served. Man, thank goodness for that GA. And, the thing about aggro that's very interesting is, like, once a unit dies, the unit that was killing you will automatically go towards someone else. So even though the Ashe did everything right against that TFT, ulted him, was able to get the GA going, the way that TFT works and the way that aggro works, he was able to burst her down right when he got rezzed for that ultimate anyway. And we're seeing that Infiltrator idea that you had just 2 lobbies ago, and talking about those snipers in the back line, that TFT taking 3 of them out 2 rounds in a row. Is Chris now on fire as Visor finally loses with that mech in first place, barely though, as he's only sitting at 96 HP. So that was a 1 unit loss there. As we get to our 4-4 carousel, this is when things start getting into the nitty gritty, especially for Nomi, who is sitting at 16 HP. The Star Guardians, I mean, maybe that's why we haven't been seeing them all that much so far. Maybe because it's just not very consistent in a tournament kind of atmosphere. These are all players that know how to play against it and know how to position against it. And if the snipers are having a hard time in the back line, you sure know those mages are going to be having a hard time with those infiltrators too.
I get the impression whenever I see a Star Guardian Sorcerer is that it's a build that you kind of have to snowball to do really well with. You have to hit blue buff early, you have to have Syndra early, and it's one of those builds that if you kind of try and put it together in the late game, it doesn't quite work the same way. And I think like you're seeing it here with Nomi. He really does need to find an extra Star Guardian. I think you've just got to. He's got the Poppy. I would obviously just got to put the Poppy on. You've just got to shove the Poppy on here. Yeah. Like he actually has the itemization to be good enough. Like he's got the double Rabadon's blue buff Syndra. Like it's a really, really good combination for the Syndra. But again, like he took so much damage, and this is one of those builds that doesn't have the consistency, in my opinion, compared to some of the others. Like it really depends on who Syndra manages to target first based on their max HP. And you can see him here. He's just being a little bit careful about trying to position it as much as possible. But in Shaco also, if you don't have any defensive items on Syndra, Shaco is another unit that's just gonna blow her up like this. I mean, obviously Syndra did manage to pick him off here, but I think he's still gonna lose,
Yeah, that GA coming in handy once again for Chris. And is he gonna lose all 16 HP here? I don't think he will. He's definitely going to single digits. Yeah, 8 HP and a potential dream as well. And I think you're right. A lot of other comps, they kind of have that nosedivey feeling, right? Where you kind of just go straight down until you get your unit, and then all of a sudden you stabilize. Just hasn't really happened here for these Star Guardian comps. There's not like that obvious, like, all right, you're plugging in the Syndra, you're gonna start winning, which it feels like it should be with a double. He's got 2 pretty hats and a blue buff, but he still seems like he's struggling a little bit. But now this is the comp, right? You've got the 4 sorcerers, you got the 6 Star Guardians. We'll see how long YouBetterKnowMe is going to be able to last, because he could potentially sneak into like a 6th place or something. But again, he's got to be perfect from here on out. And against this comp, he might be able to do it, even though the Shroud of Stillness only hits the Rakan.
Yeah, but he has to be a little bit careful because he can get perma CC'd by the Ashe. That's the only thing got a little bit careful about. But I think there's not enough damage here right now to deal with the Syndra. He should be able to get through this one pretty easily. The other thing to mention is that we talked about infiltrators being good versus snipers. They're also really good versus sorcerers. Like, infiltrators are really good versus like a no defensive item Syndra. So it's another one of those things where I genuinely think infiltrators are well placed in the meta to counter it. And yeah, Syndra's just one of those people that can get dealt with by a Shaco relatively easily.
Yeah.
Looking over at Guillosko.
I've been saying Gio. Just
Gio,
Gio.
okay.
The double L I think is Gio. I'm just assuming here.
You're going to be 10 times better at pronunciation than I am, because I'm never going to get it right. He's playing Astro Sniper though, and Astro Sniper I don't think is in a great spot right now. I feel like you have to have like insanely good items on Teemo, so this is going to be a very telling round for Gia. If he can get the right Teemo items, he might be able to stabilize here. Obviously looking for a Merlinomicon and doesn't find it.
That's a yikers for this Teemo. I mean, but you did say a little earlier that Astro Snipers or Astro can be a little bit better on Dwarf Planet itself, based on the fact that Teemo doesn't whiff on those mushrooms. The Teemos I go against are perfect every single time, but sometimes in Fight Night Rising, the Teemos can throw their mushrooms into just a little bit of a mushroom patch instead of your opponents. As Gio now still rolling, not really making his team that much better, is going to invest the Infinity Edge into the Jhin along with the Last Whisper and the Runin. So actually not an item that we tend to see on the Jhin, but at 14 HP, he's got to kind of use everything.
I actually think Runin's Jhin is really strong because obviously it deals a percentage of the attack damage that you deal. I actually think it like nigh on increases Jin's DPS. Like, yeah, wow, that's insane. It increases Jin's DPS by about like 60 to 70% because it doesn't benefit from the sniper bonus, but it does benefit from. Wait a second. Oh, Nomi's out already. We've just seen him go out, so he takes an 8th. I think that means he's unfortunately not going to be returning to European Fight Night Rising. I don't think there's any way that you can get to a top 3 with the spots that he's had. But yeah, I think with Runins on Jhin, I do think it's a really good item because Jhin has really high attack damage and it takes a percentage of your attack damage. So it's one of those items that does get huge value on Jhin.
Totally agree. And so anytime you get like that percent based, especially on that 4th shot, the rest of the shots are going to be pretty normal and average. But once you get to that 4th shot, that percentage of 10,000 is going to be enormous. And it definitely works out against those kind of weak defensive, lack of defense mages in the back line. You saw the Teemo absolutely destroyed them. Jeweled Gauntlet, an item that we never really see going to be popping up. Let's see how much damage it's going to be doing. Does crit the Xin in the front, gets another try at it. No crits that time around, but Protector's so good against Teemo just in general, and you're seeing why. It's just it's like the Teemo shrooms get through the shield and everyone else has to kind of follow up on that damage, and enough follow-up damage this time around as Gio is going to get 3 wins in a row. What's kind of bringing us to this win streak right now?
It's the itemization on the Jhin for the most part, and like I said, there's some lucky crits on Teemo. You mentioned it. They're going to be always pretty strong at getting you into a solid spot, but the itemization on Jhin is like what I would consider pretty much perfect. Like Last Whisper, i.e., you're going to have crits every single shot. You're going to have the Runins providing extra damage that Jhin suffers with. Like, Jhin really struggles because he is like very single target focused. He doesn't have any way to deal area effect damage. So Runins kind of alleviates that problem, and it makes Jhin into like a good multi-threat, like multi-damage carry. So yeah, I think he's just got really good itemization on the Jhin. The only thing that he's struggling with is he's playing a 4 sniper build. Like, he's very susceptible to just getting blown up in one shot by someone. So he has to be careful. Like, a good fizz could like ruin his day. What I'd like to see is potentially the Infinity Edge on Teemo, because that would mean that you're guaranteed crit every single spell cast, and also you're going to increase the damage your ultimate does. I've not seen many people utilize that combo of Infinity Edge Shield Gauntlet because I think it is a bit of a meme, but like I genuinely believe, like on a Teemo, for instance, with blue buff, it could be pretty spicy. If there is an Infinity Edge to pick up here, which there isn't, that's a shame. I would have gone for the Infinity Edge Shield Gauntlet combo on my Teemo if I was Gio.
Well, you also got the sniper aspect too, so the IE is going to do a little bit more true damage there. And I think you're right, especially with Jeweled Gauntlet, you got the double crit action happening, right? Everything is critting, and I think Teemo is capable of blowing up an entire team, and they're going to be inherently much more packed together on this map specifically. So definitely interested to see if Gio is going to be able to stay on fire. You don't really ever see your 7th place member, the one on the win streak in terms of the entire ladder here for the lobby, but this is really, really close. 49 HP at the top is not much before Kane, so a lot of losing happening between everyone. So a lot of the rock, paper, scissors happening, a lot of people taking victories off of their favored matchups and losing their unfavored matchups. That seems like, yes, that should happen, but it seems to be happening across the board here, which has given us a nice even spread of HP as we're getting to level 9 now with Vala. Darkstar is online, but could have better items on this gen for sure.
And he hasn't got many 2-stars as well. He's only looking at the Jarvan, the Shaco, the Rakan, and the Fizz right now. His Jin's still not yet a 2-star, so he's going to be a little bit slow in terms of damage dealing. But I do like the Jeweled Gauntlet on the Fizz. You know, if you get lucky with the Fizz ultimate cast, that can basically one-shot an entire enemy backline, so that makes a lot of sense to me. And we're looking at Vissen as well, who's running that mech build, and that's the one that I'm kind of really interested in because it's still continuing to have strong performances in the lobby. But Shaco, oh, that unit.
Oh man, just one item. Don't even need the other items. Oh, and this one's going to be pretty strong too. The one with the items is going to be a little bit better. And Shaco is so strong. Those aren't even perfect Shaco items, right? We've got the we got the Shojins. I do like Dragonclaw just in general, especially since there was a Star Guardian team comp into the game. Unfortunately, already did get taken down, and GuttaManero actually gets taken out of the game with Quejicus very close at 3 HP. Gio also still on fire at 14, sitting pretty with that Jin. And that's something that we had expected. Vala, though, in a very interesting position, in my opinion, especially since we've got Darkstar Fizz with Jeweled Gauntlet. Chum the Waters, especially if it gets good placement, is going to absolutely destroy them. And that it does. Could have even been better placement-wise. And then a lot of the burst damage comes through, but not much, as Gio is going to get eliminated by Vala. It looks like Vala's comp just a little bit better. Will Quejicus survive? No, as we get a double elimination this time around to get to our top 4. enclasee still sitting in 2nd place. You got to give the man credit.
I mean, credit where credit's due. You said it yourself. Like he's playing a Darkstar sniper protector composition, as you know you'd expect. But he is running the Fizz Shaco again, and that Fizz with Rabadons is a really heads-up play. Because again, on Dwarf Planet, any AOE abilities are going to get that much more value. And when you're playing a lot of the sniper comps, usually you're grouping up, and Fizz is going to get huge damage off with the setup that he's got. So credit where credit's due. I think he's playing this incredibly well. And he's now going to get another Shroud of Stillness. So that is a way to apply that buff across the rest of the board. You know, you could throw that on the Shaco, you could throw it on the Fizz, both of whom I think would be perfect because you can reposition them as you like. Plus, you're always going to be wanting to position your Shaco in front of the main body or the main pack of people because you want to try and get him to the back line. So obviously having that on an infiltrator is going to be good because it kind of synergizes with the way that you're going to want to position the infiltrators anyway. But yeah, again, like just showing the power of infiltrators in this lobby. Fizz and Shaco both doing huge work.
All right, so we've got Darkstars and a mech comp, I believe, in this top 4. So, you know, I think just in terms of the underdog, you got to give it to the mech, who has obviously been falling off pretty hardcore since the last time we checked in on Visor in earnest. And we're going to see Visor once more. And the double Shroud of Stillness, I believe, is going to really hurt this mech. The pilots pop out. And even though Janna gets a nice ult, it's not going to matter, as the ult's going to be a lot better for enclasee. Visor is going to get eliminated. Shaco versus Shaco that time around. And we have a top 3.
We do. And I'd love to take a look at the different builds that we've got in the top 3. I can imagine that they're actually very likely going to be Darkstar Sniper, and Darkstar Sniper. So there you go. It's some variation of Darkstar in some way, shape, or form. And this is going to be Chris, who has got the 2-star Echo this time round, but it is just like 2 infiltrators, 2 snipers, some variation of 4 or 6 Darkstar, and they dominate the top 3 spots in our lobby right here, as you can see. And actually, if you look at Chris's one build, he's got the Bloodthirster Shaco with the GA plus the Last Whisper 2, and he also has 2-star Echo, which is very strong in this situation.
Yeah, enclasee does have the Shroud of Stillness, though, so there is a possibility to burst down the Shaco in the back line. But remember, his ultimate is a percent-based increase, and actually, enclasee will end up taking the victory there once more. Level 9, gonna be on fire as the rest. Look how close. I mean, when the games are going Shaco like that, you know that unit is pretty strong, even within the other strong units of this Darkstar comp.
Oh yeah, like Shaco is just a very, very good unit overall. Like, especially with Celestial or Bloodthirster, like you're seeing in a lot of these comps, even better when you've got Celestial and Bloodthirster. Now you can see it looked like Chris actually went into a 4 Celestial comp. I actually do think that Fizz in this particular circumstance is probably better than Echo, for the main reason being that you're just looking for heavy burst damage on Dwarf Planet rather than individual targeted abilities. So I actually think that maybe having Fizz 2 is better than having Echo 2 in this scenario. Also, oh look, it's the Darkstar Infinity Edge Jeweled Gauntlet combo. I want to see how much damage this does. Oh, he got killed.
Yeah, none. Apparently, that is the answer, is none. We'll have to look at the replay for another opportunity. But I mean, I think the other thing I think we learned today is that Janna's ultimate, man, can absolutely ruin a team. And even though it's just tornadoes going everywhere, the amount of delay in terms of movement is huge. As 1 HP from Vala, no one eliminated just yet. Big carousel options here for all 3 players. Another Darkstar spat, so you could potentially even out your team comp with another Darkstar that's going to help get those stats rolling a little bit quicker, as Chris is going to be the one that takes the Darkstar spatula item.
Yep, he gets Darkstar Spat. It looks like Vala went for the Thief Gloves, which is a great universal late game item. And then it's going to be Deathblade for enclasee, which I assume is either going to go onto his Shaco or onto his Jhin. Wow, that's a 2-star Lulu for Vala. So Vala has got the Infinity Edge, Jeweled Gauntlet, Darkstar Spat, Fizz. He's got really great items with Shaco because he's got the Celestial in there. And now he has a 2-star Lulu also. I think he's probably the strongest player in the lobby, but a lot of this is going to come down to positioning, in my honest opinion. I do think this is going to be a very positioning-focused lobby. I love that enclasee has teched in Gnar, because Gnar in this lobby is very good at being a real nuisance, throwing your backline straight into the firing line.
And everyone getting painted with that Shroud of Stillness as well. Gnar going to throw 4 members, but the Janna will also going to actually delay the follow-up damage. It's not going to delay for that much longer, and I think the Gnar tech, like you called, my friend, is going to bring Excoundrel at least a top 2, putting him still in the running, by the way, for a Fight Night Rising after 3 lobbies record when it comes to points. So if he's able to win this lobby, he could potentially break the record in the last lobby of the day.
Is the record 28?
The record is, I believe the record is 36 or 38. Okay. I gotta confirm, but I believe if he gets 38, he either has it or ties it. But I mean, still, to win 2 lobbies, to be top 2 on the 3rd, just in general, I don't remember the last time I got top 4 3 lobbies in a row on ladder.
No,
so
this is insane. This
is nuts. So enclasee looking good, going for the record, has 1 more person to go through, and it's going to be Chris, a very common foe for enclasee. I feel like we see these 2 battle it out kind of frequently. This Jhin, though, going to get completely safe in the back line. This time the Echo isn't going to focus in on the Jhin like we saw it focus in on the Jinx a little earlier. This is going to be a lobby win, potentially, by enclasee if they burst down the Shaco. Huge ultimate by that Rakan. Enough damage? No! We get 1 more shot. Let's see if Shelly is going to bring us some special items.
So that's an insane item for the Fizz. Like, Ionic Spark with Fizz and Rabadon's Death Cap is really, really good. I would definitely be considering throwing that onto the Fizz. I'd love to see it's Swordbreaker. That's not ideal. There's not many people that... The only person that would use that is Echo. So you could give Swordbreaker to Echo, and maybe he can get some good disarms. But I think what you're seeing here is just the pure difference between Fizz and Echo in a scenario like this. Like, I think Fizz in general is just the best infiltrator. I think his ultimate is just unbelievably good. So I do genuinely believe that Fizz is a better choice in most circumstances. But I think that Echo is very good at targeted killing. You know, he'll kill 1 particular unit, especially if they've got high attack speed. But overall, I do believe that Fizz is a more universally useful infiltrator. And you've kind of seen the difference between enclasee having the Fizz 2 and the Echo 2. But yeah, you have to put Swordbreaker on Echo. Because his ult counts as basic attacks and it can apply on hit effects. So if you can get a disarm with an Echo ult, it could be huge.
Yeah, and it's only gonna... Does the timer for the disarm start after the ult, or does it start during the ult?
It's well, he freezes time, right? So it'll only apply after the ult anyway, I think.
Okay, so he gets full value out of it, but the lack of mana from Chris actually hurting those double Shroud of Stillness, I think, really helping enclaze on the other side. Actually, I think is a big reason why he's able to survive as long as he does. Is everyone gonna get turned into the little pretty creatures? But it's going to be enclaze taking the victory.
Wow.
That's 3 lobbies in a row. The world record for Fight Night Rising is up for grabs. No pressure on enclaze. You got to win this next lobby to secure yourself as a legendary status. No one ever in the history of Fight Night Rising has ever won 4 lobbies in a row. Winning 3 lobbies in a row is nutty just in general. But man,
who got 38 then? Who was the person who got 38?
It was Sleet a couple weeks back. It was Sleet TFT. Was his first week ever, and I think came in with 36 or 38 points. So we'll have to make sure that I'm sure it's actually in my, I'll go through my Twitter or something and really get the confirmation on that number, because I'm sure something was said about it. But 10-10-10, look at that. Chris sitting in second place, 19, almost double the score of half the lobby. Yes, actually, enclaze does have double the score of half the lobby. Unfortunately, YouBetterKnowMe is going to be taken out of the top 3. The 3-week curse does strike YouBetterKnowMe, but maybe that's good for enclaze, as if YouBetterKnowMe maybe took all that bad juju and made it so enclaze could get to that 30 points, took all the bad luck away.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, enclaze is, like you said, on track to be and technically set an unbeatable record for Fight Night Rising, because if he were to go first, he could never actually be beaten and only be tied. So I think, it's a big moment for enclaze if he were to go first in the final round. Not only would it show that he seems to have a clear grasp on the meta that seems to be something that deals with Dark Souls, and I think that the infiltrators and the way he itemizes his infiltrators is something that's really impacting the outcomes of these games. But also, like you said, not only would he beat the record, he would also have a record that is forevermore unbeatable and only to be tied by any future competitors in Fight Night Rising.
All right, so I grabbed the sheet. I was able to find it. So the record's actually 36. So this is totally beatable for enclaze.
Oh, yeah.
So Sleet got 8-8-10-10 for his record. He actually just made it through his group stage for the Cloud9 Championship as well. So congratulations, Sleet. So for the giantslayer record, up for grabs, enclaze, you have to get 3rd or better, and you will forever be, maybe not forever, but you will now be the highest point getter ever in the history of Fight Night Rising. That's actually pretty insane. But now we're going to have to get into that lobby and really find out if we're going to see a record get broken, but also who's going to be the rest of our top 3, because the rest of that scoreboard was pretty close.
Yeah, because enclaze has taken the top spot 3 games in a row, it's meant that the rest of the points have remained within a suitable range of each other, that we could genuinely see some huge shifts even in the final game. It's quite clear that no one's catching enclaze. He's guaranteed top 3 at this point. In fact, probably guaranteed top 1. I think the closest to him was 19. I couldn't remember exactly, but I could check again in a minute. I'll get someone. So he's guaranteed top 1. I think at this point, because I think like we saw on the sheet that 19 was the closest. So there's no way that you can get 11 points. So even if enclaze, there's no way that you can get 0. So he's guaranteed first, like coming out of this game, no matter where he ends up. But like you said, the important thing for him now is 3rd or better, and he beats the all-time record for. And if he gets, he gets 4th? No, he ties. He ties at 4th. If he gets 4th, he ties it. If he gets 4th, but if he gets 3rd or better, that's the all-time record. And would you believe it? He is. Oh wait, I just remembered. He's not actually. We're on Star Galaxy, so he hasn't got a 2-star already. I thought he'd somehow picked up a 2-star Alawi straight up, but he has got a good start for Shredder. He's got 2 Zayas, he's got a Jarvan, and he's got 2 Caitlyn's with a BF sword start. Like, this is a potentially good start for Shredder if that's the direction that he wants to go.
Shredder with the right start, such a snowbally type of composition, can definitely get you a lobby 1 win. I think got us 2 last week. Of course, the players were still experimenting when it came to the meta a little bit more than they are right now. But yeah, I think Shredder is definitely on the table. Let's see if we get any more items. Yeah, still on the table.
I mean, I would be committing. I would definitely be thinking about committing to Shredder at this point in time. Like, this is obviously I want to see what I get on the next round. But if I hit any of these 2-stars like Zaya or Jarvan, I'm like, okay, Shredder's in the cards right now. I have a potential Last Whisper with the bow. and I have a potential Infinity Edge with the sword. Let's see what item or what he gets from this particular round here, and we will be able to make a good assessment of whether it's the direction that he wants to go. Gold is not bad if you're looking to play Shredder. Like, not ideal to only get 2 items. I completely agree and understand with that. But if you sell like some units here and just hit 10 gold, like, this is like really good, because the better economy that you have, the more likely you are to be able to hit a slow rolling process with the Shredder build. And actually, you know, carousel priority might be something that Enclave is after here, given that he has got a you know, a potential Last Whisper and a potential Infinity Edge, and he just needs the Brawler's gloves to get things started.
All right, Enclaze, we're all no pressure, man. Just a record at stake, my friend. So remember, for everyone at home, if you're tracking Enclaze, because we're definitely going to be looking at some other boards here very shortly. If you're tracking Enclaze, it's 3rd or better gets him the record. 4th place ties, and so that's what we're looking for on Enclaze. But now that we're looking at some other people in this lobby, we saw Chris just take the victory over Enclaze for this round. Again, we're just kind of jostling for position. If you were in this lobby here, I love asking this question, and you were in your 6th to 3rd spot that you were competing for that top 3, are you just gonna keep running Darkstar, or is now kind of the time to try something crazy?
It's one of those things that is really difficult to answer, because the way I always approach games is I kind of see what I get given. Like, I am really bad at forcing compositions. Like, I'm always one of those players that kind of just gets I mainly roll with the items. Like, I'm one of those players that mainly rolls with the items. So yeah, I'm not exactly fantastic at. Is that a bug? It says 2-1 on the toolbar at the top, but it's actually 2-2.
Yeah, I think it is a bug.
That
just changed. Yeah, Mort.
Oh, okay.
Calling Mort.
Mort.
Hey,
please, Mort.
Game-breaking bug.
I don't know if that just is always that way. Maybe I just haven't noticed. Yeah, I'm one of those players that always kind of goes to the items that I get given. So I think most players kind of do that. They kind of see what items they've got, they see what the units they're getting given, and they kind of make a decision from there. I'm not one of those people that's going to go into lobby and be like, well, everyone's playing Darkstar, so if I start getting given Jins and Shakos, I'm not going to bother. So I think again, it's just one of those things that you have to kind of assess based on the items and the lobby that you're in.
Totally. All right, last lobby for all of these players. Only our bottom 2, which I believe was Nomi and blanking on the last one, eliminated from top 3 potential contention. But the rest of the lobby, here we go. It is Gio who's going to be eliminated from that, because with 10 points, he would not be able to get to that top 3. But literally everyone else is competing for a top 3 spot. Vicer, who was our mech player last time around, I believe had about 100 HP for the first 6 to 7 rounds, and then just nosedived to, 3rd place, not the worst there when it comes to that mech. But Vicer has the Rumble, has the Bard, and got the opening Jarvan on Star Cluster, which is huge. But unfortunately for him, the units he has don't necessarily work the best with Jarvan. Outside the Bard does.
Yeah, actually, to be honest with you, like, Rumble's not too bad. Like, the quicker you can get Rumble to ultimate, the better, especially with the demo that he's got going on with the Ziggs. So yeah, I wouldn't say that his units are particularly bad with Jarvan, but what I would say is that he hasn't really got an economy to speak of. Like, usually you want to have 10 gold by round 2-3. But actually, he looks like he's invested quite a lot to hit level 5 to ensure that he maintains a win streak, which is like really aggressive. So it has to pay off. And I think with Ziggs and Rumble, I would be a little concerned that I've invested a lot of gold into units that are going to drop off, relatively shortly.
All right, we're going to get up to our next carousel. So is Star Cluster going to be a time where we might consider getting units instead of items in a carousel situation?
Well, you look at it in 2 different ways.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously, like if the item is really important to you, you should definitely prioritize the item over the unit. But the best case scenario is that you pick up a unit that has an item that you would like, or at least would think about utilizing further down the line, and you can field the 2-star immediately. That's usually the best case scenario. So that's the way I would always look at Star Cluster. It's like, can I get like a compromise between a unit that I'd like and an item that I'd like? And if I can't, I'll often just go for the item to guarantee. Like in this particular instance, you see Vice's really like dead set on getting the Warmogs for the Jarvan, but obviously there is a situation where you might want to find some sort of happy medium between the two of them.
All right. And the other thing about Vicer is this is, I believe, the first Bard that we've seen so far today. Definitely fallen a little bit out of favor. We saw a ton of Bards over the last couple weeks, but today this is definitely one of the few examples of the unit that we've seen. Not a lot of Mystics, not a lot of Vanguards, something that we thought we might be seeing a little bit more of this time around. But something else I also wanted to talk about and piggyback off of what you said is the need for 10 gold, particularly in Star Cluster, because Star Cluster inherently makes you play a little bit more aggressively. You're closer to those tier 3 units than already just based on some of the units that you're getting, especially if you're taking them off of carousel. You're maybe selling some higher cost units a little bit later to help you get some interest. How does economy work with Star Cluster? Is it going to be closer to something like Nico, where you're going to be holding on to some money for later more expensive units, or going to be closer to like Trade Sector, where you're spending and spending and spending?
I actually think it's kind of a normal economy, to be honest with you. Like, you might even get a bit of more of a boon, because if you sell those 2-star units, they're now worth more. So, though, if you pick up a 2-star unit from the carousel, it's now worth almost its fully combined value minus 1 gold. So you might see people being able to accelerate their pre-Terrabuster economy a little bit more so. But I would say that the economy that on Star Cluster is actually relatively normal. Like, the game is played mostly as you would play normally. But obviously, like, sometimes you're going to pick up a 2-star that you sell, and sometimes you're going to pick a 2-star that you keep. So there'll be a little bit of a variance about kind of what economy thresholds are being hit at what point by players. So it really just depends on if you're going to use the 2-star that you pick up or not.
All right, is someone that we actually haven't seen a ton of, been kind of hanging around the middling to the bottom side of the leaderboard, which is Vala, who is going to be doing a little bit something different this time. He's got the double battle cast with that Cassiopeia and that Kog'Maw, who is already at tier 2. Picked him up at the carousel, most likely, especially since there's a Negatron cloak on him right now. I do love Cassiopeia. These two units in terms of battle cast are the only ones I think that really use the trait to the best of its ability. It's almost like the trait was made for these two units, mostly for Cassiopeia with the way that her poison DOT works, damage over time. But looking at this comp right now, it's something that we haven't seen so far. Do you want to tell us why we haven't seen this so far versus why we probably won't see it a little bit later?
What, Battlecast or just Cassiopeia Vanguard Mystics?
Just Cassiopeia Vanguard Mystics, and if you want to add a sprinkling of Battlecast in there, you can.
Sure. Well, Vanguard Mystics, we kind of briefly touched on it in the first lobby of today. It is a build that kind of lacks huge damage potential. Like, unless you get like blue buff, Morellos, plus something on the Cassiopeia, and then a really good setup for your Jace, your damage falls off. It's too slow. And with the massive popularity of Infinity Edge Last Whisper combos, your front line is not as tanky as you think it is. What I would say is that something that has been popping up more recently is 6 Vanguards, 2 Mystics, Cassiopeia plus Soraka most of the time. And then you run 6 Vanguards because you get 1,000 armor with 6 Vanguards. Now, Last Whisper, I believe, cuts through 60% of armor now. And so that would leave you with 400 armor, which is still more than the 4 Vanguard bonus, right? So I actually think 6 Vanguards is something that we're seeing a little bit more of in the current meta, because even with Last Whisper, even if they burn through that armor value, you're still able to have a big tanky frontline. But 4 Vanguards, 4 Mystics, A, we don't see as much magic damage and much sorcerer compositions anymore, and B, that frontline is not that tanky, especially with the prevalence of Last Whisper Infinity Edge combos and the ridiculous damage that Jhin does. Like, they just get burst through really quickly. So that's the reason we don't see many Vanguard Mystic comps. But I think there's a place for 6 Vanguards, 2 Mystics in the current meta. I'm surprised we haven't seen much more of it, actually, because I do think it's a pretty strong comp. And in terms of Battlecast, we kind of touched on it last week, but we can reiterate quickly. You need to have like an insane mid game. The flat damage, flat magic damage, especially, it's not even true damage. It falls off like crazy. Like flat damage comps in general fall off like there's no tomorrow. So it's just not something that has any kind of legs in the late game, and you just can't make it work.
Okay, well, I was counting how many auto attacks Shojin's tier 1 Ashe needs to get to that ultimate. It seems like 5 after the first ultimate charge. So that's why the Rage Blade is also so strong, because you can get a good amount of attack speed on that Ashe, so you can get to those 5 auto attacks after that Shojin's as quickly as possible. But we might actually be able to see a Mystic Vanguard on that board. There was a lot of different kinds of units that might have been available. It's maybe still deciding how exactly we want to approach this, as we're looking at Quejicus right now, and he's going to be doing a little bit of a scouting, but he's someone else who's competing for that 3rd spot to potentially be able to sneak in to it. And also someone, every time we're over here, he's probably doing the most scouting out of everyone that we have seen, has a Cybernetics this time around with Vayne with that last Whisper. This is the first time we're seeing this.
Yeah, we haven't seen any Cybernetics the entire lobby, and the reason we discussed previously is that it's Vayne's been nerfed. She's no longer the insane mid-game carry that she once was, and Irelia really struggles to get through tanks, and so that means that you can't utilize the buffed carry because it's still not that viable. But if you hit a 3-star Vayne, if you hit a 2-star Vayne this early on into the lobby, you can still make Cybernetics work, to a very, very good degree. So that's what I would say about the Cybernetics build. This is a troll carousel. There's one blue buff and like all these spats.
Why would there be one blue buff? That's the thing that like really bothers me out of all of this. It's because it's a 4-cost unit and maybe it's coded a little differently. Because at that point you gotta have that's just a little unfair.
It's just one of those troll carousels that Mort puts out because he's a giga memer.
I imagine him sometimes just being like, you know what I mean? Like, the pyramid fingers,
just
like
adapt,
Mr.
by the way. Just adapt. My favorite Mort. That's my favorite Mort quote. Just adapt, by the way.
Yeah,
adapt to the 1 blue buff, 7 or 8 spatula carousel. Go.
Something you probably won't ever see ever again, but just adapt to it, friends. As now Quejicus and the rest of the lobby need to figure out what to do with their spatulas, which are not actually very good items. I remember back in set 1 and set 2 is all about those spatulas, but now you're really only seeing it to kind of in addition to a lot of these units. Like, for example, the only one that you're really going to see get made is Infiltrator Spat for Irelia. So for this particular comp that we're seeing right now for Quejicus, that Irelia might actually be that Infiltrator Irelia. We could see a full cybernetic comp.
Agree.
And I think at this point with what you have, you almost got to go for it. It's kind of what's given. It's kind of what's shown to you already, and you're at 50 gold. This is kind of how you want to play it anyway.
Agree. No, I think cybernetic Infiltrator Spat Irelia is a good goal here for K. Because or no, I'm just gonna call him 91. I think it's a good goal for him because it's not often you're going to get offered a spat like that, and you should be able to pick up a bow at some point because bows aren't particularly popular right now. I would say bow is one of the least popular items, just in terms of the fact that no one really like you can't really utilize bow outside of Last Whisper and like Ginsu's, but that's not as popular. And sometimes people like to go for Runans, but that's it. Like those are the uses that bow gets. But yeah, I agree. Like Infiltrator Spat should be the play here for 91. He should definitely go for that.
All right, it actually looks like GuttaManero. I don't know if he was just scouting this time around, or if this is what. Yeah, he's actually going cybernetics as well. So he's got the items. Okay. So they're both going to be competing for that BF sword. The items on the Vayne are exactly the same so far. They both got the spatulas on that last round. We'll see who got the blue buff a little bit later. Actually, it looks like Chris was the one that got the blue buff, as we see it on the other side with that Cassiopeia. But yeah, we are going to see GuttaManero fall once more. Is our other cybernetic player also going to lose? There is a little bit of a ramp up, but man, old Vayne used to not even need items to be this good. Now you definitely need to build into the Vayne and then maybe even build into the Irelia a little bit later, as Nomi also in 8th place. I think maybe doing a little bit of experimentation with some open fording or some like kind of nosedive type of situations.
This is limit testing round for Nomi. This is the opportunity. This is the opportunity he gets to play whatever he wants. It looks like he's going Shredder though. He has got a 3-star Xayah, and he's working towards a 3-star Fiora, and he's obviously just now trying to find like a Last Whisper or something like that because he's got a Giant Slayer there. He's also got a Protector Spat Riven, which is insane because he's going to just get like a ridiculous number of shields from the Riven.
Oh, got a ton of items too.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Where are these items going to go? Definitely easy choice with that last whisper. We have a blue buff. If we want to put it on someone, maybe cheeky. Maybe we can put it on
Riven could be okay. I mean, it's not the best. Infinity Edge would have been an option if he waited to the next carousel, but I do like the Quicksilver too. Otherwise, I'd just make Frozen Heart. Like I'd probably be thinking about making Frozen Heart in this scenario. That or Redemption. I think you could make Frozen Heart plus Redemption, and I think they're both perfectly viable. So Frozen Heart is like a really good item in the current meta, but he's gonna go for yeah, I like it. Frozen Heart is a good item in the current meta. It's very strong overall.
Yeah, I remember getting slammed by a Protector Riven at the beginning of the set, even before kind of Riven was an issue a couple patches ago, or just last patch. And we're seeing, I mean, it's just shields upon shields. It's an extra. It's in addition to what she's already getting. So getting with that Protector is just going to give her just a little bit of extra time to make something happen when it comes to getting to those 3 different ultimates. And I actually think getting into a couple more Protectors might be a good idea for Nomi here. I think there's legs on this Protector Riven, but you gotta follow it up with a little bit of AP damage a little bit later, because you're going to be ulting, I think, a little less often than if you or she, say, were a Star Guardian than a Protector, but she's going to be alive for a little bit longer, which hopefully helps her get to those ultimates. And with the Jarvan and the attack speed, that should help quite a bit. Very interesting team comp here. Does go to the 4 Protectors, and we're really going to see this Riven pop right now, especially since he did invest the Nikos on it.
What I would say, I actually been thinking, while you were just discussing the Riven in particular, I was kind of thinking about the fall of Six Sorcerer Riven. You know, like they kind of just fell off the face of the planet, and that was because the nerfs that Riven got were too heavy for Riven to cope with. And actually, what that's been making me think, like maybe just in terms of balancing, if they're going to make such sweeping changes to certain units in the game, maybe they should like not nerf the strong units as well. Like either leave them as they are and just buff other units to bring things up in terms of power level. The problem is when you nerf a unit and then buff others, is that you're just going to create this seesaw effect where the units that were good are no longer good, and then suddenly they become unviable. You need to find that sweet spot. So, you know, maybe in the next patch, don't nerf apart from Jarvan. Don't nerf everything that is super strong, and then just try buffing some of the not strong things, and then that might create an environment where it's okay to go Jarvan, but it's okay to go Riven as well, because they're all just really strong units in their own circumstances. So that might be the way that I think to approach the next patch. I'm not a game designer though, so like literally I'm talking out my bum, to be honest with you. But like realistically, that's the way I would be viewing it, I suppose.
Well, I think that's kind of like, so I actually I've had a pretty interesting life that I've gotten to live, which is awesome, but I have gotten to work at a game studio before, and the number one thing when it comes to that argument is power creep. Right? If you start buffing things, power creep starts happening. And then we all saw it in League of Legends proper when Zac came out many, many moons ago, where we finally had a unit that could literally jump over any wall on the map. And then after that, every single champion that came out had some type of movement ability because of what Zac could do, right? Is the argument. So when you do buff some of those lower units, you do get into power creep, which some argue is a little bit harder to deal with after it's happened on a design aspect versus being able to just nerf power, right? So that's kind of the idea behind it. But in terms of game design, you can buff units without power creep, and like trying to, if you're coming up with design choices, kind of like Brigitte in Overwatch, that let's make this character to go up against this thing specifically, that's when power creep can get really, really bad. But I think you can figure out how to buff some units on the bottom side of the equation and make them viable without changing the game. You know what I mean? Which I think power creep, that's what people are worried about. What do you think about that now that you have that kind of information?
I still think you can just go ahead and buff things like Riven ever so slightly. Even if you just undid the nerfs that you did in the last patch, right? You just revert the nerfs on the last patch. I don't think it makes Riven like unbelievably strong that you couldn't play Protectors or Darkstar, right? It's like 25 shield at all ranks, I think, on her ability. So I think there are like minor changes that you can make that wouldn't give you ridiculous power creep. But obviously, the game is never going to be in a state where there is a perfectly balanced meta. That just doesn't exist, because with a game like TFT, when there are so many working parts and so many synergies that interact with each other, it's going to be nigh on impossible to enter a situation where it's perfectly balanced and every comp is viable. It just isn't going to happen. It just isn't going to happen.
It's a pipe dream.
Exactly. So I think like the best you can do is try and like, instead of like bring units down at the same time as bringing things up, just do a little bit of experimentation where you just you take the units that are really bad in the current meta and you just make them a bit better, or you take the units that are strong in the current meta and you bring them down, in the sense that you nerf power, like you said, but you don't necessarily raise power on the other side. So that might make things a bit more level. You know, it's all about, in my eyes, just kind of balancing and leveling. And every time that we've seen this happen over the last few patches, it's been the strong thing gets hit with a bat and the weak thing gets put on a pedestal, and they keep missing each other in the middle. Like they just keep missing each other in the middle. And it's sometimes it's just finding that point in the middle, and that point might be, don't nerf the hell out of something that's strong and then buff the hell out of something that's weak. Maybe just do one or the other to either side, and that might bring them to a suitable level.
Yeah, I think there is a world where we can potentially have the world of TFT where people specialize in certain comps and galaxies, but the way that things are balanced is you have to know how to play literally every single thing, right? It's because they keep missing each other. 1 week everyone is a, you know, sorcerer ribbon player. The next week everyone's playing Dark Star. You know what I mean? And in terms of professional play, that can be pretty challenging to constantly have to adjust. And that's the reason why we got rid of B patches. But I mean, this constant evolving of, all right, this is good, now this is good, isn't, I think, giving enough of those fringe cases some love, in my opinion.
There's no chance to be a specialist, I think.
Yeah.
There was previously, like with Mech Infiltrator, we saw with people like Kyun, there was plenty of chances to be specialists, and there is that argument that people don't think there should be specialists in TFT, which is a really interesting argument, and I'm sure we could go onto it for a very long time. But realistically, I think specialists are good for casual play as well. Like, most players do not have the capacity to be able to play several different builds at a high level, and spending 2 weeks to learn a build only to have it kind of obliterated 2 weeks later is really taxing on a lot of casual players, because it's like, it is difficult. Me as a content creator, I love it when there's changes, because it means there's more for me to talk about. But I understand from a casual perspective, one of the biggest comments that I always get on my YouTube channel is like, I was really good at this build and now it sucks, now I don't know what to do. You know, and that's one of the things that you have to be wary of as a game designer when you're designing for both casual and pro play. And that's why Hearthstone Battlegrounds, you know, for instance, they were just like, yeah, well, this is a casual game, so we're only ever going to balance it for casual. So don't worry about, like, don't complain to us about competitive, because it's just not going to happen. And I think that's like, do you kind of have to go for one or the other as a game designer? That's a really interesting debate to have. And as we just saw, GuttaManero get knocked out, that's not good for his chances of getting top 3. But yeah, that's an interesting like debate to have around, especially auto battler game design, because should you just be trying to play for casual, or should you be trying to play for competitive? It's like, is it even possible to do both?
Because one will also push innovation forward as well when you're giving that kind of incentive to move on and try. Because when things are just as good, like Darkstar, like we're seeing right now, and I think this is why it's good for us to talk about it. There is no real incentive, unless you're on enclasee, I guess, to really go after something else, because even at tier 1, you're still probably running a better comp than the other person. And so once we do kind of bring things to the middle, you know, and something that just to kind of put a pin in it here is, Mort said, I think not too long ago, that there are players that still haven't come back that were Yordle players back in set 1, right? That just loved playing Yordles. They all could honestly kick it right now if it was up to me, because damn you, Yordles. But the moral of the story is, like, people get really attached to certain builds and certain ways of play, and the way they view on how to correctly play a game like this is maybe going omnidirectional, right? Just like how the priest and rogue players in Hearthstone tend to only play those 2 classes, right? So we'll see if we ever get to that point. But I love having that kind of discussion. I'd love to, in terms of like omni players, I could definitely talk about that for hours too, because I think there's definitely really good arguments on both sides. But I think the most important thing for us right now is seeing where enclasee is.
Nice. I was literally about to mention it. I kind of want to see how enclasee is doing in this game, because it's a very important game for him. He's quite clearly already secured first, but his biggest story is that he could break the all-time points record for Fight Night.
Yep, and remember, folks, he only needs to get 3rd or higher to break the all-time Fight Night Rising record that is currently held by Sleet TFT. That was, I think, only set like 4 weeks ago, so it hasn't really been here for that long, as enclasee now actually a lot of people suffering in terms of HP, sitting in 4th place. The 4th place will tie him for that record. But man, things could not be closer right now for enclasee. This is not a done deal. This is not a for sure thing for him. His units could definitely be a little bit better, but at least he's got good items on that Shaco. Did end up going the Protector way. That tier 2 Zen kind of, I think, baited him into going into this particular comp, going a little bit blender here, but it looks like it's working out pretty good. Potentially a top 4, but we're not looking for a top 4 Excoundrel. We're looking for that top 3.
He's got the units on the bench to make a transition happen at some point. Like, he's got the Jins, he's got the Ashe there. There is a transition that can be made at some point in this build, but it's about what are you taking out and what are you moving over. He looks like he's trying to play more around the Shaco with an Infiltrator Rakan than anything else, but he's holding on to some very expensive units on his bench for the off chance that he might want to make that transition over to snipers, which is really interesting. I'm wondering what he's actually going to do by keeping hold of them for the time being.
Yeah, he's going to be reaching for that tier 3 Shaco as well, so that's definitely not out of the equation. A big heal from that Soraka. Definitely going to keep him here. It looks like enclasee, though, is losing a little bit of that war of attrition. That Janna might bring him right back, but Soraka's not going to last very much longer, and he's going to be probably 1 loss away from getting eliminated at 9 HP. Where is he in the standings? In a 6th place. That record is looking a little bit too far out of reach, but I mean, to be in the running for something like that is a huge deal, especially for enclasee breaking that 3-week curse. But hey, we got the Dark Stars in. We might be able to pull a random victory out of like a rock, paper, scissors situation out of Chris, or maybe even Nomi, who is still in the game, finding himself a lot more success with Shredder this time around than any of the Sorcerer comps in the previous lobbies. But let's go ahead and stick on to enclasee, because this might be the end of his round. Who will he be going against on the other side? I can't quite see through those pixels, but we definitely have some we got some infiltrators in at the back line. Ashes are going
I'm just going off blue. I'm going off green and red right now. Like, I'm just going to assess like how many greens and how many reds that I see.
I know, right? It's a numbers game here. It looks like there's going to be a little bit more greens.
There's more greens.
Yeah, there's definitely more greens. enclasee, a lot of purple.
No.
That's going to be a no record for enclasee this time around. That Janna, man, such a strong unit, I would assume, based off of all the tornadoes on the board, but enclasee is unable to get the record. The record will stay in NA for the time being. Excoundrel, Sleet TFT will continue to hold on to it. But you got to give props to 30 points in 3 lobbies. I've never seen that before. So enclasee, man, I think you showed us tier 3 Echo. So overall, it's like a wonderful day for you. Yeah, we'll take the tier 3 Echo. What a wonderful day.
Yeah, oh, thank you, producer. You've heard our cries, and now we can. we have the best producer. He was on point there.
Yeah. He made me laugh earlier, and I like any producer that can get me to break character on screen. It's actually very hard to do, but apparently not with you two. But anyway,
is it like a specific character? Is Boopasaurus like a specific character, or is it just like a
I like pride myself on being able to like push through most like vocal like weird things like I did like before today, but with you guys, I don't know why. It makes me laugh on the inside. It just comes out when you've got Matlock in the background being like phrasing, and you gotta laugh. You know, you know what I mean? I love that stuff. Anyway, YouBetterKnowMe is loving his life a little bit more this time around, sitting in 5th place, competing for top 4 for the first time today. Did fall victim to that 3-week curse as 4 Celestial, 4 Protector. So funny that I think this is the 3rd person we've seen in this lobby run 4 Protectors.
Yeah, I mean, 4 Protectors is still a really popular variation of Protectors. He's running the Shredder build, not running the 6 Blade Master. So there is a version of Shredder that is called Shredder 2.0 that's essentially the 6 Blade Master variant. This is essentially an abridged old Shredder variation, but utilizing the fact that you've got Riven now, and Riven is obviously a really, really good Blade Master to add in because it's going to give you Chrono as well as Blade Master alongside Shen. So you can ditch the Fiora, which is overall a pretty useless unit, and he's gone for a bit more of a tanky frontline, like you said, with 4 Celestial and 4 Protector. And 4 Celestial is a good trait, you know, like it got buffed in the last patch, and if you can get 4 Celestial activated, that's why I think that's another reason why Protectors have become so strong, because 2 of the Protectors are Celestial. You know, you end up with a scenario where there's just insane amounts of healing going on. Lots of Dark Star snipers in the top 4, though, as you'd expect. Lots of Jarvan orientated comp still in the top 4, as you would expect.
We've got a double Warmogs Jarvan on the field somewhere, as I saw it get scouted by YouBetterKnowMe. And the other thing about YouBetterKnowMe that I definitely want to bring up is they committed to this Protector Riven, which has been here for almost I mean, I think he got that tier 2 Riven at like 3 something in terms of the rounds in. We're definitely going to see kind of like,
it. Yeah.
A kind of tankier version of Riven. I mean, when Riven gets CC, she's always been weak against CC, but I mean,
Sure.
you're seeing the extra beef, just having her survive a little bit longer, I think helps YouBetterKnowMe win that round in at the end without a Protector Riven. I don't think he wins that round, but very interesting to see how that has gone as we see another Dark Star Fizz, and here is our double Warmogs Jarvan. That's going to be hard to
double
break
Warmogs
through.
with Thornmail as well. Sorry, with Bramblevest. Thornmail is the upgraded version in traditional league, but yeah, with Bramblevest as well. That's absolutely insane.
Yeah,
and he's got a pretty spicy looking Xerath there.
Yeah, I mean, this is going quite well, but it's actually pretty crazy as the lobby has tightened up quite a bit. 23 HP, we're already in our top 4, as Nomi now sitting in second place, Vala in third, and Visor in first. This is actually really good news for Visor, I think, who is our mech player from previous rounds, being able to sneak into the top 4, and now Visor competing for that top 3 spot. Pretty much, I feel like if he finishes in first or second place, especially if Nomi is playing spoiler like he is right now, he should feel pretty confident. All we know for sure right now is enclasee is in first place.
Yeah, I think Nomi just got knocked out by that Xerath, so we are looking at Visor versus. Can't quite make out who he's going up against in the top 2
Vala.
here.
It is V&V.
Vala. Okay, so we've got Visor versus Vala in the top 2, and Visor, I think, has the stronger variation of the comp. He's got a lot of 2 stars. I think he's got 6 Dark Star activated, plus he has incredible items on his Xerath. I think this is probably going to be Visor favored. He's just got incredible items for his build.
Plus, he's got that tier 2 Janna, which in my opinion today I've learned is on the side of overpowered than in power based off of that ultimate. And man, I've seen Janna just pull fights back from the brink all day today and making fights closer than I think they should be, even in some losses. So here we go. Potential last round for Vala versus Visor. Visor is going to be the one with that Xerath in the back line that's going to be doing a ton of damage. I actually really like the Hex Tech on him too, so if he gets taken down early on in this fight, he's going to be able to heal up with those ults. And look at all those particle effects, friends. That means the ultimates have come online. The Ashe is going to be able to get into the back line. A little bit more green than red right now, but no, the red is going to take the victory. Huge win for Visor there. Will Vala be able to sneak into the top 3? All we know is that at 34 points is enclasee in first place, or maybe 35 points there. Who will finish out that top 3? Big day for enclasee. Congratulations. Best player in the lobby all day today. I mean, there's no question about it. I'm excited to hear his interview if he is able to come on. But outside of enclasee, is there anything that you wanted to point out in terms of something that you were excited or maybe that you didn't get to see today?
Yeah, no Rebels. Was expected to maybe see at least 1 or 2 Rebel players. Very few people opting into Jinx. We saw 1 Jinx player the entire day. I think that was in the first lobby. And again, just shows that the meta is definitely in need of a bit of love, like a bit of a gentle push, because we're in a situation where we are just completely dominated by Jarvan and Dark Stars. So yeah, that would be my assessment of the meta. Like right now, it's still not in the healthiest of spots, but I do believe people aren't quite. They're not keen on exploiting certain parts of the meta that I think, for instance, enclasee did, with the infiltrators, which are potentially with the right itemization pretty good at dealing with things like Jhin and Ashe. I think people are just unwilling to go and experiment because of how strong Jarvan is, but I do believe the other builds are still good. People are just for some reason kind of averse to them right now.
Yeah, we get to ask enclasee directly if that is the case, Excoundrel. So first off, are you there, enclasee?
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah, well, congratulations. You were 2 spots away from becoming the Fight Night Rising overall point total champion forever. I don't know if you knew this, but if you got 3rd or higher in that lobby, you would have broken the record.
I got told.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure your community probably isn't going to let you forget about it. But what happened there at that last lobby? I mean, of course, we can laud all those successes on you, winning 3 lobbies in a row. I think that is the first time that we've seen that so far in Fight Night Rising. Do you kind of credit that with your ability to understand this meta and kind of counter the lobby a little bit more? What do you think brought you to those 3 straight wins?
Yeah, a mix of both. I think the first game was just high rolling right from the beginning, so I couldn't do many mistakes in this game, I think. The second game was the Echo 3. Yeah, that was not really planned. I mean, the whole setup wasn't planned, so it was not some hidden secret tactics or something like this. It was just I wanted to go normal Jin comp, and I've seen, I think, 2 or 3 players use their Nico for Jin, and I still had none. So the chance to get one was pretty low, and I had 3 Nikos. And yeah, and then I rolled the Echo and had already Fist 2. And I was, because of the first game where I finished first, I was just thinking, yeah, maybe the Infiltrators and Protectors should be possible to top 4 with it. And well, that would be a good result, right? So I was going for top 4. And then Echo 3 happened. That was not really how it was supposed to be.
And thank you for
Echo is beautiful.
thanks
beautiful.
for asserting your dominance in a way of selling the rest of your units that weren't infiltrators and your one as well. And then it got polymorphed, which made me a little worried there at the end. But yeah, that's a really great way to assert your dominance, Excoundrel. Anything for our friend enclasee here?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, obviously the meta is not in the best place. I think most people probably agree. I mean, we've gone from one pretty poor meta to another. But I do think that maybe people are kind of overlooking some builds that are still pretty strong for some, I think people are so like fixated on Jarvan and Jin in general, who are 2 incredibly good units, obviously, as well as Shaco, that I feel like there are builds that are being a little bit overlooked. What is it, do you think, that is allowing people and in these lobbies to have like 6 Darkstar Jin players and people aren't thinking about pivoting? Like what is it that is causing this to happen? Because realistically, we've never had, I don't think we've ever had a meta where you can have 6 people in a lobby attempt to go for the same build and it still work out. Is it just because the 2-star variations of these units are just too strong? Or what do you think the issue is with that particular part of the meta right now?
Yeah, the meta is in a terrible state. It's just it's a problem right from the beginning with your items. So everyone knows Darkstar is probably the best, and Soros maybe the second. And you have, I think 10 different builds for Darkstars. And the problem is you after you're at least in high challenger lobbies, after your first 3 rounds, you see your items and you normally have to commit completely. And if you have a sword and a tier, you have to go Shojin, and if you don't do it, you will just lose, and to come back is incredibly hard. And if you have Shojin, you can't go Astro Sniper, for example, anymore, because you can't build a blue buff anymore. And so Vanguard Mystic is dead and Astro Sniper is dead, and you are just committed, and there's no other build you can pivot to. And well, if you have 2 tiers, you probably go Zintra or Casio or Astro Sniper. And so the lobby is pretty stale right at the beginning. And you just can't pivot because more than 50% of the units are just crap at the moment. And it's so hard to transition into anything.
I think actually you hit the nail on the head here with the way that the items are set up, in the sense that I'm not high challenger, but even in sort of like mid master tier, grandmaster tier lobbies, like people will look at their items and think, how can I make this work with Darkstar? Because Darkstar because they can utilize the items. And like you said, there's lots of variations that utilize items well, but there just aren't any of the units that use those items. And I think that's one of the problems, that because I think you hit the nail on the head. I feel like you have to slam your items early, and there's no way that you can hold items, because if you tank too much HP, that's it. You saw YouBetterKnowMe like tried to open fort and be a bit more flexible and just got battered every single game. Do you think then, like if you were to change, like let's say change 2 items that would maybe you would think would be the biggest impact on changing the meta, what would you think about changing?
I don't think it's the items overall. It's just that more than half of the pool of all units are trash. You can't play them because they are too bad at the beginning. And even if they, someone says, yeah, maybe you can play Jinx or Aurelion in the late game. Yeah, but you doesn't come to this point, because how you come to level 8 or 9, if you have to slam your items early, and if you don't do it, you just get slammed by Shekos in the mid game, or by early Jins, and Ashe combo is incredibly strong, Fizz is strong, and these are all units you can't use in Cybers or in Rebels. And so, well, you have to cut your whole setup and build completely new, and that's not possible in the game, actually.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. It was just a terrible patch, because they over-nerfed things and over-buffed things, and now we have the reverse meta of the 4 weeks before. So everything was playable before isn't playable anymore. I mean, yes, if you high roll insanely, you can play Cybers or you can play Rebels, but it's just a 1 in a million. And so everyone goes on the same comp, and it's pretty not fun.
All right. Well,
I mean, yeah, it's good to get your perspective. That's what I just wanted to. It's nice to get your perspective, but obviously, like for you, this is 3rd week in a row now. By the way, for Fight Night Rising, so obviously you're doing well. I mean, you're able to navigate these metas. What is it that what is it that you think that makes you able to do that? Are you someone that picks up the meta and the patches really quickly?
Overall, yes, I think. But I think it's just experience and the time I'm playing. I mean, I'm playing, I think, 8 to 10 hours a day, just because, well, I'm streaming. And so, yeah, of course, if this wouldn't work, I would do something wrong. It's not really complicated. It's just no fun. A new meta, you see it after maybe 1 or 2 days. So, well, everyone who can read the guide could just do it as well if you know the basics. So it's not the biggest problem at this point. It's just it's just no fun actually, and the meta has to evolve and offer more transition possibilities, like in set free for most of the time, where Kassadin was just, I think they have removed the most important unit in the game, and since then the whole set 3.5 is not really balanced at all.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think, have had time to reflect on what they feel about 3.5, especially after Travis put out that tweet that was like, TFT competitive, not in the greatest spot right now. But say you had 5 minutes with more uninterrupted time with more in the TFT team, right? In terms of what you believe is the most important thing to kind of get this passion back, get some of that flexibility and variability back, what would you suggest to Mort in terms of changing TFT if you had that 5 minutes, and why?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of units which are very like Kassadin. You can play them splash them in basically almost every setup, but they are not oppressive, so they are not dominating like Kyle. So they are not the hard carry. And I just like units like them, and I think we need more of them. You can just put them in almost every setup, but they are not the carries. The same is for the 5-star units. I think it's a very bad meta almost always, because it just ends in rushing level 8, level 9, when the legendaries are too strong. For example, Echo. It's just not good if Echo 2 is winning the fights alone. On the other hand, it's, I think, pretty good something like Lulu. You can play Lulu in every setup, but she's never the kind of champion where you think, oh, my opponent has a 2-star Lulu, the game is over.
Sure. And
that's what it needs more, I think, and not less. So if you take out something like Kassadin, or also Lux was also pretty flexible in some points. You just make the meta very stale, and you can't pivot to anything, because you always need some steps, some rounds. And something like Kassadin was always an option to pivot to anything. Because, well, you said, okay, my setup, it doesn't work. I'm not hitting anything. So I'm putting in Kassadin and another Mana Weaver and some Celestials, and I hope it works for 2 rounds, and try to pivot to something else. But if you don't have this transition, it's almost impossible. I mean, what you want to do? You want to take out your Javan and your Rakan? I mean, there's nothing else what is stronger. So you just get weaker for a few rounds and die probably.
Sure.
So yeah, more units of them. That would be amazing. Also on the 4-star slot and the 3-star slot would be pretty good for the game, I think.
Yeah, we've actually used this whole interview just to complain about
Oh,
TFT.
no.
And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry because I want to celebrate how well you've done as well. Like, you know, I really want to celebrate the fact that you won 3 lobbies in a row and you
Crazy.
were close to breaking the record of Fight Night, which is incredible. So, like that aside, I think you should be very proud of yourself. I think you've done an incredible job over 3 weeks, and I do hope that we get to see you continue it throughout the following weeks too.
Yes, I hope so.
All right,
It's a lot
well,
of fun.
to close out, where can we find you and your stream? Where is your online presence so we can kind of keep up with what you're doing? Because especially after today and such a dominating performance, and honestly, this conversation with you has been awesome. Where can we find you online?
I'm only streaming in German, so it's maybe you hear it. My English isn't the absolute best. And yeah, I'm a German streamer, and you can find me on Twitch on TheEnclase. And well, I'm not doing anything else. I mean, I have a little YouTube channel, but I'm not doing anything there. I'm just streaming since years, day in, day out.
Well, that is the grind continues, and you'll be back next week once more for the 4th week, breaking that 3-week curse with 3 lobby wins in a row. Absolutely amazing stuff on Clays. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations.
Thank you as well. Have a
All
nice
right.
one.
Yeah, you too. And in terms of the rest of the top 3, it actually ended up being the last 2 members of our last lobby. So it was our V&V friends, which were Vicer and Vala. So our mech player got into the top 3, and Vicer as well, I believe, both finishing with 26 points. 33 points, I believe, is the high mark from on enclasee. So not even close, but Vicer, since he did finish higher, I believe in that last lobby, by 1 spot, is going to finish in 2nd place, and Vala will finish officially in 3rd. That's important based off of prize money, so enclasee will get that $200. But look at how close it ended up being in the end. I mean, even GuttaManero, without an 8th place there on that last lobby, was in competition that whole time. Only, I mean, 6 out of the 8 could have potentially come back next week, but moral of the story, Exco 3, pretty good. Let's buff and nerf certain units, not just take certain ones out of the games. The other one, and the other thing I learned is enclasee, man. He's got a good head on his shoulders. Super smart guy, you can tell.
Yeah, and also his English is great. I don't know what
Yeah,
he was
great.
saying. His English is beautiful for you know.
Yeah, I know,
down,
right? Yeah,
putting himself down too much. So, you know, I think I don't want to spend too many of these interviews sort of like just being grumbly about the game, but the thing to take away is that when players are like this, it's because they're passionate about TFT and they're passionate about it being as good as it can be. And I think, you know, I don't want people to take away that people that dislike the game or they hate it, because they don't. We all love TFT. We love it with, you know, incredible passion, but it's just that we really want it to be the best it can be so that it's good for everybody and it makes the game better and the game grows. So that's, you know, that's why people get like so worked up about certain metas or certain balancing, because like they just want the game to be as healthy as possible so that they can continue to play it for a very long time to come. So you could hear that with the passion. You could hear that with the passion in his voice, and you know you could tell that he really wants the game to be as best as it can be. And you know, I think we'll get there. I think we will.
And so, I think the moral of the story is this community is full of passion, and I think passion can show itself in very different ways, but the root of all of this is the passion that the personalities, the players, the casters, everybody show. Everyone at giantslayer, everyone who is putting on these events with no spectator mode, with no like true official like instructions on how to actually do this. I think giantslayer and the rest of the community have really banded together and created something awesome when it comes to TFT. We just really want that game to be the best it can, so when more people do come, that they stay as well. But I think that's going to be a good place to end it. Excoundrel, where can we find you online, my friend?
Excoundrel on everything. Where can we find you, Boop?
Booposaurus Rex on most everything. And that's going to be it for us today. We are going to have a couple more weeks of EU Fight Night Rising. It's going to be us back again next week, and maybe we're going to have a different meta as well. Here's to hoping that a patch gets dropped here soon. But until we do get to next week, it's been an absolute pleasure, Excoundrel, as always. The exquisite, the extraordinary Excoundrel. You know, I got to work on those tongue twisters for next week as well, but that's going to be it for us today. We'll see you next week.